Welcome in, everyone, to qualifying for the 11th Home Place Beer Daytona 500. My name is David Westergreen. I will be joined tonight by my co-announcer Zach Evans and our producer David Huckleberry. Uh, the usuals for the season. We will be kind of bringing it to you every single Wednesday night. This is our first official Wednesday night broadcast of the 2024 B season. We'll set the running order for the Daytona 500 next week, and Zach Evans, bringing you in. Replacing Gerald a little bit, and we're going to watch Gerald go out and make a qualifying run right here. So it's good to have you. Obviously, we've already gotten one broadcast under our belt on Sunday, but how you feeling about this Cup Series season coming up?
Oh, it's hard not to be excited about the start of a new season. And of course, so much hype and energy goes into the Daytona 500, the home place beer, Daytona 500 each season, starting with these qualifying sessions to find out who will start on the front row next week and to set the lineups for the duels later this evening. Of course, as you mentioned, Gerald Campbell will be the first car out. I mean, this is kind of what we've been waiting for all summer long to get this new season underway.
It is, and it's more of a summer break rather than a winter break this time, but very exciting, and all of these drivers are going to be familiar faces, I think, for the most part. A couple of newer faces, but in this elite chartered series, most of the drivers who ran 2024A will be returning for 2024B. Gerald obviously stepping out of the broadcast booth into the car and rolling here for qualifying at Daytona. A quick overview of the format here for everyone as we get started. These drivers will be rolling off pit road, driving around the track to take the green flag. Then they will run one lap, and the fastest single lap of those 50, looks like going to be 50 entries exactly, will be sitting on the pole for the Daytona 500 next week. Other than that, we will set the lineup with two dual races later tonight at the conclusion of qualifying. And yeah, that's pretty much the format. That's what we're looking at going forward here. And Gerald will rip this silver and red Ford around the track and take the green flag for the first time.
And one neat thing about the single car qualifying format for the Daytona 500, obviously it's unique to this event. It's part of what makes this event special, but also gives us a chance to kind of preview these guys, check them out, new faces, old faces, of course, leading off your open drivers, the guys who will have the most at stake tonight. Several, probably close to a dozen or so drivers fighting for 3 spots in this field. Of course, you mentioned Gerald Campbell being one of them. Naturally earned 0 points last season in the Cup Series. He was in here doing this job on Wednesday nights 1 season ago, getting back behind the wheel for the 2024B season in that 00, and he's going to be top of the board for at least a minute or so. We're going to see what kind of time he lays down here in the 00, coming out of turn 4 to the line. And we should see here shortly what the time to beat will be for these drivers.
49.417 for Gerald Campbell. On track now will be Darren Staff of RK Motorsports. He'll be teammates with an additional elite racing broadcaster, Carlos Acosta. But a new team somewhat to this Elite Cup Series is this RK Motorsports group. Carlos ran a few races last year, but Darren on board with Carlos, his buddy, this year. I think Jess Story is also in this open group. And Zach, I want to touch on it before we really get deep into this group of open cars. What is the format that these drivers are going to take? I believe we're gonna get fastest open car will enter the Daytona 500, and then do you have an overview of how the duels are going to assign open drivers to this Daytona 500 field?
So the way it was explained in the drivers meeting, if I followed it correctly, is basically the top 2 finishers from the duels who are open cars will move on. So not top 2 from each duel, but 2 cars from the duels based on their finish will move on to give us the 43 car field next week. Yep. So overall, 3 open cars fighting for or 3 spots on the line for those open drivers.
I do believe we're missing one of our charter drivers next week already, as well, and I am double checking how that spot will be addressed. But for now, Darren Staff does not roll as fast as Gerald Campbell. Gerald still on that provisional pole. Zach Rogers, the driver out and running here in the 1 car. I'm not sure what team this is for Zach Rogers. He's stepped in. This is kind of a guy who's been in and out of elite racing. He's been in other series, and he's usually pretty fast, especially at these plate tracks. So, yeah, this is definitely one to watch here tonight.
Got the number 1, almost a Johnny Benson vibe going on. I was joking with the Mountain Man Motorsports number 1. Clocks in
Second
fastest at 49.425 for Mr. Rogers in the 1 car.
And the 4th car will be the highest finisher between the duels, and the highest finisher in each duel gets there. So of these open cars, including Frank Foti on track right now in that bite-sized Sports Lake Norman number 41, of the highest finisher in each duel, and then the highest second finisher in either duel will get those spots, along with the fastest qualifying time by that open driver. And we'll see what Frank Foti has for him here down the back straightaway. Frank's been, he was one of the Cinderella stories last year. First kind of time at Daytona. Now he's got one under his belt. He made that Daytona 500, ran pretty well, and was doing a lot of learning. Now this time I think Frank will be out there trying to maybe pull some moves. He won't be quite so conservative at the back.
Yeah, definitely one to watch. Like you mentioned, was in the hunt for that open spot 1 season ago. We'll see what he clocks in here in the 41 out of Lake Norman stable. 4th fastest, 49.460 for Frank Foti. We'll now turn our attention to another family tradition, the Racimus family. It's the 07 of Jaden Racimus on track.
Yep, Jaden Racimus, the son of Jesse Racimus, last year's Truck Series champion here in the Elite Racing League, and obviously Frank Foti, the father of kind of perennial contender and race winner Tyler Foti. So, we do have a number of family items here. We talked about this on Sunday when Jesse and Jaden were drafting back and forth in the Mark Wachek Memorial race there. So we'll see what Jaden can do. This 07 car looks pretty sporty with the green and the black and the white. Remember, Jesse, I think, won the pole last year at this Daytona 500.
Indeed, and we'll see what Jaden Racimus can lay down. Maybe he got some quick lessons from his father across the line. It will be 49.453 seconds for the 07 of Jaden Racimus.
So a little bit of a gap there between Gerald Campbell, Zach Rogers, and then the other 3 that have gone. And now we've got Jess Story, who is also of RK Motorsports. That'll be the teammate of Darren Staff and Carlos Acosta. Should we bring in Gerald Campbell here, hear about his qualifying effort, maybe talk to our broadcaster of last season?
I think that's a swell idea.
Bring him up. Gerald Campbell, David in the booth. You got me?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Yeah, Gerald, how's it going? Jumping back in the car. You're obviously on the provisional pole for now. You think it'll hold up for these open drivers?
If I didn't have a guy up there controlling who gets drawn in what position, maybe. I don't like going out first. It's usually never the best thing to do. So I know I did about as good as I could on my lap. I mean, honestly, truthfully, I don't know if I could really have done much more. But it's just when the track gets a little bit warmed up, it goes a little bit faster, and there goes the time. So,
yep,
that much faster is not what I'm doing on the racetrack. That's just the racetrack itself. So, yeah, the first 4 or 5 guys always have it rough on qualifying. So, yeah, if Chad's in my lobby, I'm going to definitely not work with him tonight for sure.
Well, as noted there, Jess Story going to the top of the board, 49.378 seconds in the number 29 for RK Motorsports. Now you see the head honcho of RK Motorsports, Carlos Acosta, on track in the 02. Gerald, I mean, you mentioned, obviously, we still have the duels ahead of us. You got a little bit of practice here on Monday night. What are you kind of expecting out of these duel races later this evening?
It's gonna be a mixture of two different types of people. I think the ones that are gonna try to wait in the back, and I'm one of the few that that got a lot of practice on Monday night, and a lot of really good practice, if I do say so. It was a lot that I learned that I feel comfortable enough to be out front, so that's where I'm gonna try to stay. Be aggressive and be one of those guys that people know that they can work with rather than trying to get out of line as soon as they get up there. You're going to have guys that maybe don't feel as comfortable, that didn't get to do the Clash. They didn't qualify for the Clash. So, only 18 guys really know what to expect on how this car is supposed to drive. And the others are waiting to see how it works out in the duels, where I don't have to worry about that. So I'm gonna go into the duels and try to be the head guy and try to be the guy that people know that they have to push. So that way, if I don't make it into the race, at least I know I had a lot of fun in the duel race, at least.
Absolutely. I think that's generally my thought philosophy as well. At least have some fun while you're out there, even if it ends up with you in the wall. As we watch Connor Thompson Gardner out here qualifying for Shift Esports in one of their open cars. But, Gerald, I want to make one last question for you is kind of what is the process that these drivers are going through? Is there a specific strategy, run high on that first lap, run low, try to tuck it to the white line on the second lap? Since you've only got the one lap really to generate speed, is there anything that these guys are thinking they can do differently to, get that extra second or two to gain positions for the start of this duel race?
Second or two? No, absolutely not. Second or two.
Millisecond or two.
A couple hundreds or thousands, if at most, and everything. Really, yeah, there is a lot that you can do. I mean, there is a big. There's a tenth of a second really separating Carlos Acosta and Jess Story at the front, and they went right one after another. So there is a tenth of a second that can be done, obviously, right there. It's the approach to coming to the line to start the lap is a very big thing. Not spinning the tires and being very smooth, getting up through the gears, not hitting the rev limiter, shifting at the right RPMs. So you're looking at the RPMs the entire time when you're shifting up. So having that momentum of getting up through the gears to set that lap is going to be very important. And then when you come to the green flag, you got to be smooth on the steering wheel, completely smooth. Now, different guys have different strategy of how they approach the turns. Some of them want to do a wide entry in. Some of them want to cut it off going in. There's different ways to do it. I'm not going to share it because there is still some people that is going to be using that tactic here coming up from people I know, so I don't want to give it out to everybody just yet, but there is a lot that you can do on the racetrack to be able to gain that. What I saw with Jess Story's lap, it was very similar to my lap and how I took it. So I feel like that 378 is very good. Now, with that being said, it's a game of luck too, as far as where you're coming out onto the racetrack and where the heat is, and how you'll see there'll be a group of guys all of a sudden all go out there and they pick up time. It's just for some reason the heat on the track or the time of when it happens, but there are a lot of factors that go into it. So it's a little bit more work than and stress than even being able to create a setup whenever you come to these fixed setup races.
Gotcha. Well, Gerald, any shout outs before we send you off here tonight?
Shout out to Chad for making sure that I got picked for dead last in the Clash and then picked very first for qualifying. I'm sure that had nothing to do with him running out of talent on last week's race when he ran into the back of me in the All-Star race. So good luck to him in tonight's race if I can put him into the sucker hole. Make sure, hey, remember what we used the name for, Dave? What that middle lane is. It's going to be effective here tonight too. What did we call it last? The garbage chute. Garbage chute. Yeah, the garbage chute. It's definitely a garbage chute. It stinks like high heaven. It is not great. That middle lane is not going to be where you're going to want to be. You can make it work for like a couple seconds, but you got to get out of that garbage chute or you're going to go to the trash.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gerald, and good luck in the duel tonight. We know you won't be locked in based on the qualifying speeds, but you look like you've got what you're doing out there, and it should be a fun one to watch.
If anything, I'll provide entertainment by causing a big one. However we go about doing it, one way or another, I'm going to be in the highlight reel.
That sounds good. Well, we appreciate it, Gerald. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
So to catch us up to speed a little bit here, after that wonderful interview with Gerald Campbell, you just saw Mitch Javier, who's one of the 500 owned drivers on the lineup. He just clocked in at 49.449 seconds. Again, one of those drivers we'll probably only see for the Daytona 500 this season, a pretty common thing for this race because of how special it is. There is a tie atop the leaderboard. Jess Story and Connor Thompson both at 49.378 seconds. Jess Story, if this were to hold, Jess Story would have the higher time. He would start on the pole by virtue of setting that lap first. Got that clarification during that interview. Raymond Hanneman clocked in third so far at 49.390 seconds before Gerald Campbell down to fourth. Zach Rogers in fifth. Jake Scarborough sixth. Then Mitch Javier, Jaden Racibas, Darren Staff, Frank Fody, Carlos Acosta, how they sit now with Jeff Green about to log his lap here in the number 2 out of the Do Good Motorsports stable. Another driver we always have to watch at these super speedway tracks. Fourth fastest, 49.404 for the 2000 Busch Series champion, Jeff Green.
I believe that will lock Jess Story into this Daytona 500 field, and by the slimmest of margins over Connor Thompson. So, definitely a good news for Jess Story. He's in the 500. He's certainly a guy that's run a few of these elite races. He knows what he's doing out there, and obviously with a good enough qualifying time to get it in. Now, before Josh Robin crosses the line, we have checked if Jess Story and Connor Thompson were to hold the pole in second. Only Jess Story would be locked into the field. Connor Thompson would still have to race his way in the duels afterwards. So, even if Thompson does stay second, no bonus there for being on the outside of the front row.
So now we have moved on to our charter drivers here. Josh Robin on track in the number 8 machine. He's going to cross the line here. You see that blue background on the scoring pylon for him. He clocked in 4th fastest. And that'll be, obviously, it's a neat little touch here to remind you, Jess Story fastest of the open drivers. It's going to be very important when we get to the duels later this evening to keep an eye on those orange and blue numbers.
He's the first of a couple of guys who started to race in this Cup Series last year. Chris Stouffer and Richie Hearn, teammates over at 4D Raceware. This 47 car is Chris Stouffer. And he had a few decent races last season. Felt like he ended up in a few more incidents, I think, than he would have cared to admit. But now with the start of a new season, it's all fresh. And for a team that joined us midway through last season, I think this group getting those charters and being locked into this Daytona 500 gives them a little less pressure to perform right off the gate here.
I could tell you from personal experience, Dave, when I used to partake in the Cup Series here in Elite, it is a world of difference to come in as an open guy versus a charter guy. Jess Story still fastest. Chris Stouffer,
he's down the board. He's right there behind Carlos.
49.471 seconds, 13th fastest. I believe Dave messed me up by changing Jess Story to green. And it confused me ever so slightly, but I understand the process now, and I'm on board with it.
Yeah, here's Chris Wright, the announcer for Mondays in the Elite Racing Network. He announces on the Xfinity cars, and he was the announcer for the Clash race that occurred on Monday, won by Tate Lytle over Gerald Campbell, who one of our top qualifiers right now there in 6th. Chris Wright running that chairgate and paint scheme back. He did not have very much luck last season. Ended up just kind of involved in a lot of things of his own making, and right up until they were of his own making once we got down to Road America last year.
Chris Wright across the line. Third fastest, 49.390 seconds in the number 9 out of the Mountain Man stable. Next up, Richie Hearn, driving car number 73. Again, another one of those drivers we saw pop in later in the season here in Elite. Did well enough to earn himself a charter and get himself some breathing room this evening. So, kind of to the point I was making along those lines around the time Christopher wrapped up his time, especially for the 500 in particular, but really for the first several weeks of this season when you got to have 8, 9, 10 guys every week trying to get into these races as open drivers. It is so tough in this field when you're going up against guys like Gerald Campbell and R.C. Enerson and I mean, you see the names in orange on this list: Zach Rogers, Jeff Green. It's a lot of pressure to try to make your way into not just this race, but all of the races, as Richie Hearn clocking in 7th fastest on the board, time of 49.409 seconds. It completely changes, in particular, how you're able to approach tonight.
Right, and it just gives you that flexibility, to, especially when it comes to racing in the dual races, but also with your preparation, right? All these guys have been really focused on racing practice and drafting practice for these dual races, and a lot of those open guys, they've been practicing for qualifying pretty exclusively here. They'll focus more on the race next week, but all the open guys, they have to focus on getting into the field here, and qualifying was maybe the easiest way to do that. And now they're going to have to regroup and go out there, and like Gerald said, he's going to jump to the front. We're definitely going to see some guys play off the back and run some strategy, as we see Andrew Rucker and Sonny D get to the line. Rucker clocks in lap.
Ooh. Yeah,
17th for Andrew Rucker.
49.478 for Andrew Rucker. Next up will be Joshua Personette in that number 18 out of the Fueled Up Racing team.
Personette's usually pretty good at these plate tracks. We've seen him run well in this Daytona 500 setting a number of times, and I want to say he was in the top 10 last year. Must have finished 5th last season there in 2024A. So Personette definitely one of the guys you're going to be wanting to look out for next Wednesday to sneak in a good finish.
Joshua Personette rounding turns 3 and 4 now. We'll see what kind of time he can put down in that number 18. Cross the line here beneath the feet of Barney the Flagman. It will be 49.385, good for third fastest for the 18 of Joshua Personette. That will bring us to Mark Rebelis on track, the number 99. We've seen that Bitcoin sponsorship on the car for quite a while now. He's I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. Mark might be one of the most talented photographers I know of on the face of the earth. Obviously, that's we see his name on Monday nights as a sponsor of the Grand National Series. We see him as a sponsor of the replays here on the Elite Racing Network broadcast. But when his schedule allows, he's able to get behind the wheel and take part in these races as well. Wednesday nights usually work out great for him because he's not off at some football game or NHRA event or whatever the case may be. We usually see him quite regularly here in the Cup Series. We'll see what kind of time he can lay down in that number 99.
Yeah, Mark's he's one of the long-standing members of this Elite Racing League, and you're going to see that, I think, here as we roll through these chartered cars. We mentioned the 4D group that is kind of brand new. Well, Mark Rebelis is kind of the opposite of that. That guy's been around for years. And been a kind of an integral part, and not everybody is those championship contender types. Mark Rebelis is certainly not that, but it'd be good to see him run really well tonight and for the rest of this season here in that 99 car.
49.472 for the 99, 17th fastest. We now turn our attention. I know, Dave, you're like me. We love some of these old throwback look. Got the Texas Terry look going on for Corey Abbott in the 21 as he's about to start his qualifying effort.
I have to go back and check. Corey Abbott did tell me what the scheme was for, because remember last year I called Corey Abbott Ka-chow all season because he was running the Lightning McQueen paint scheme, and he did promise me it was coming back, but they're running the Terry Labonte throwback for, I believe, a family member. So hey, major props to Corey Abbott and the Abbott Motorsports group for putting out a really great paint. And we were talking about how great some of the paints were last season in the Daytona 500, and this might be one of the paints of the race. So definitely a good one here. Looks like we do have a driver in the waiting room. Should we call up Raymond Hanneman, see what he's got to talk to us about?
Yeah.
Raymond Hanneman, it's David in the booth. You got me?
I got a copy.
Yeah, Ray, you looks like you're sitting 5th right now, but you did not make the race on speed. So what is your plan going into the duels tonight?
Honestly, when we were doing Monday night race there on the Clash, I made a lot of friends with the Fords. They know I can push well, so I'm pretty sure if I just get behind someone that's already locked in and just push them to the front, I think I'll be able to make some headroom and hopefully get a good shot going in.
Corey Abbott clocked in quick time, 49.359. New top of the board is Michael Goodman on track now in that 44. Of course, Raymond, last season I was over on the Truck Series side of the broadcast booth, and you had an okay time at Daytona last season, it's safe to say. Does that help, knowing you got that win? Obviously, the vehicles are completely different, the caliber of competition completely different, but you're a winner at Daytona in Elite. That has to help going into tonight, right?
It helps a little bit. Definitely, it's a different style of racing here, though. These cars, it's more elbows out, but it's to keep your car more clean. Like, I ran that race, and I was able to cross the line first by pure luck with damage on my truck. So I just know going into this, if I got damage on this car, it's going to be a lot harder to make any moves like that last year.
Sounds good. Well, Raymond, we've got a couple more guys in the waiting room, so you got any shout-outs for us here before we send you off?
Oh, I got to thank the guys at the Street Limit for getting me into this. I got to thank all the teammates, all the fans watching, all the family members watching tonight. Putting on a show for you guys. I got to thank Laughing Llama Wraps for the amazing paint scheme. I got to thank you guys. I got to thank my personal sponsors, the Crew App and Boost the North again this year, repping them, and hopefully you'll put on a show tonight.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Raymond, and good luck tonight in the duels.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Michael Goodman clocked in second fastest, 49.377 seconds. Now looking at Michael Hossack on track in the number 24 for Covered Bridge Racing. We will see what kind of time he is able to lay down here. Headed towards the finish line. It will be second fastest, 49.372. So definitely some quick times going on the board right now. Of course, Corey Abbott still fastest. Michael Hossack now second. Michael Goodman in third as Justin Fortner will start his flyer into number 26. Dave, you mentioned some more drivers in the waiting room. Who are we going to bring up next?
Let's talk to 2000 Busch Series champ Jeff Green. How about that? Jeff, it's David in the booth. You got me?
Yes, sir. Got you, Dave.
That's also race winner last night in the ARCA series, Jeff. But you're gonna have to race your way into the 500 next week. What's your strategy going into tonight?
First of all, got to finish. Got to be there at the end to be able to make it. I thought that I would have had a little bit better lap. I practiced quite a bit today. Felt like I could lock myself in by qualifying, but Jeff's got us on that one. So good for him. Congratulate to him to be able to start the 500 next week and just hopefully have a good, safe night and keep out everybody else's mess and have some friends. That last night, the ARCA race, I had quite a few people that helped me to get that victory. So that's what it's going to take tonight, to have some help and people being patient with you.
49.437 seconds for Justin Fortner, good for 15th. Fastest is now Jordan Owens on track. Jeff, you've been around this Elite Racing League for a while now. You even were kind enough to give the league the shout out while you were on the Dale Jr. download, I guess about a month ago at this point. As you've been a part of this league and getting ready for another Home Place Brewing Company Daytona 500, what has it been like to kind of watch how events like this have grown over the years?
Oh, well, I get comments all the time about, if you didn't know you was watching a computer game on the TV, that it's, I'm sitting there watching it right now, and it looks like the real thing. So And me sitting in the seat, turning the wheel, it feels like the real thing. You don't have sound. I mean, you don't have fumes or tire smell and things like that. The car doesn't. My rig don't move, of course, but the seat doesn't move. But you feel it all through your hands and your ears. So I mean, it's so realistic, and it's just I'm just excited. I mean, I think it's for me. It's one good thing that came out of COVID was had to have something to do, so I had to put me something together and start iRacing. So that was a good thing for me. But you know, people's been doing it a lot longer than I have, and I'm sure they've seen, you know, ups and downs. Things have turned over, being more successful. Just you know, go on YouTube and watch any race you want to, and it's just like the real thing. So it's exciting, you know, to be able to race basically like you're out there in a race car in reality. So it's so close. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. And any shout outs for us here, Jeff, before we send you off? And you know, good luck tonight. Obviously, we know you'll be fast and up there at the front.
Thanks. I always shout out to Turner Eye Clinic. He helps me a lot. Clifford does, and my teammates Goody and Dragon. Dragon's not here tonight. He's throwing horseshoes in a tournament somewhere. So we'll be looking forward for him to get back next week. And he's always a good drafter. So looking forward to that. So just hope everybody tunes in and watches. It's going to be exciting here in a little bit.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Jeff, and good luck tonight.
Thanks, man. See y'all.
Send Jeff Green back. And Zach, I'll let you summarize what we missed there while we were talking to Jeff.
So Jordan Owens clocked in 49.415 seconds. And then after that, who was after that?
Vandermarl.
Vandermarl, 49.392 seconds in car 80, clocked in ninth fastest. Now you're looking at Brent Jones about to wrap up his qualifying effort. Survey says 22nd with a time of 49.465 seconds, and that brings us on track to
Gavin Hibbs.
Gavin Hibbs in the 95 machine. Another one of those Shift Esports entries on track currently. And the next car will be a Leighton Norgard.
Yep. I do want to note, we had Brent Jones there. If you have an underdog pick for the Daytona 500, pick Brent Jones. That's the underdog guy. He doesn't show the big speed in the qualifying effort, but that guy knows how to put his car in the right spot in a 500-mile race to end up at the front. I think last year he finished 4th in the 500. He's got something like an average finish in the top 10 in those full distance 500-mile Daytona races in this elite racing league. So, you know, there's one guy that I'm thinking, you know, if you're putting betting money on, you might want to be betting on old Brent Jones.
49.440 seconds for the 95 of Gavin Hibbs. That will place him 18th on the leaderboard right now. As I mentioned, Leighton Norgard next on track in the number 12, another one of those Abbott Motorsports machines.
See if he can run up there with Corey, his teammate. And while we're watching a Leighton Norgard, let's grab the only open driver to be locked in to this Daytona 500. That is Jess Story. And Jess, if we've got a copy on you, buddy, congratulations on making it into the 500 next Wednesday. You know, what does that change for your strategy tonight in the duels?
Boy, thank you so much for that. Yeah, this changes the complexity of the duels so much. Now I don't have to worry. Like, my biggest goal was to try to make the race, and so far I've been able to do that. So now tonight it's just all about learning how these cars run in the draft and just try to get some information for the 500. And on top of that, maybe, depending on how this plays out, maybe try to help one of my teammates get in possibly. So it's definitely a surreal moment. I can't believe it. This is going to be my first Daytona 500 I'll be in, and I'm just so excited.
You mentioned not only your first chance at this Daytona 500, but I mean, for at least on the elite side, RK Motorsports kind of a new team. Obviously, all open drivers over there for the most part, because it is a newer team. You talk about having that chance. If the duels work out, we don't know the lineups yet, but you might be in a position to help Carlos or Darren get into the show. what's going to be key as far as that goes, trying to make that work out?
Yeah, just communication between me and my teammates. I think it looks like they're going to be starting probably a little bit further back than me. So just trying to find a way to get together and work together and try to run up front as much as we can. I'll tell you what, it's been a blast racing for this team. They've done, like, Carlos has done a great job with this team. Darren's been a really good teammate, especially in the ARCA series, and he's also the one that makes our liveries. So big shout out to those guys. They're probably the best teammates I've ever had. So being able to help them out and trying to work with them and try to get them in will just make it much more sweeter for us.
I can confirm that. Watched three of you guys draft past me yesterday, and all three of you working really well together. It helped me a lot, actually, so I appreciated the teamwork there. But Jess, any shout-outs for us here before we send you off?
Oh yeah, big shout out to you guys for putting this show on. It's always been a pleasure watching these Elite Racing Network broadcasts. Shout out to Chad, all the admins in Elite, for putting on this show for us as well. Big shout out to my team, Arcade Motorsports, Carlos, Darren, and also our partners, 3Y TV, and also to Blue Egg Marketing and Worldwide Technology Raceway and 4D Racewear as our other partner, as our league partners. You know, none of this would be possible without those guys. And like I said, I'm really excited to get to this race. I'm ecstatic.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jess, and congratulations for making it into the 500. Good luck in the duels tonight.
All right, thank you.
So while we were conducting that interview, a Leighton Norgard 49.416 seconds. He is currently 15th. Just a hair behind that, Nick Massey 49.420 seconds, currently 17th. And then lastly, you saw Justin Wadsworth on track in the number 6 machine. He is currently in the 13th position, 49.411 seconds. Now looking at Seth Rawls on track in the number 25 for Shift Esports.
Yeah, I want to note one change of that group, right? A bunch of those guys still in the same ride they were last season, but Justin Wadsworth has joined Lake Norman Motorsports. That after winning Rookie of the Year, that's a decently significant change for the tides of this Cup Series. As Seth Rawls goes 7th quick, 49.38. 388 looks like on the board for Seth Rawls. Now Trey Holmes out on track, and adding Justin to that Lake Norman lineup. I know we won't see Scott Crump tonight at any point, but he'll start next week in the Daytona 500. That group might be a pretty formidable group, as that's the very first driver that we've seen of Lake Norman that wasn't an open car.
Yeah, definitely some shakeups over the off season should make it, I mean, especially here of all places, it's always really interesting to see those team dynamics. You heard Jess Story talking about it in his interview, how he's able to become a little bit more of a team player for the duels. Originally, it was probably going to be a little bit more every man for himself amongst the RK guys. A certain amount of co-opetition. You're going to have to work together to get up front, but then only one of you can make the show. Now he can try to change that and get at least. Oh, look at that new quick time. Trey Holmes, 49.349 seconds. New top of the board as now Jonathan Cutlip on track in the number 5 entry.
Oh, we were just going to talk to Corey Abbott. Let's bring him up anyway and get him on. But Corey, if you've got a copy, we were going to get you while you were on the provisional poll. Unfortunately, no longer there, but a really strong qualifying effort anyway. Take us through your strategy tonight at these dual races.
Well, the strategy was smooth and fast. Didn't really have one, to be honest. I came across the line, and I heard a Leighton in my ear just go, "Oh, hey, great lap." I go, "Really? Was it?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. It was a great lap." I look, and I'm on pole, so...
Almost. We'll see how high up you start, but you're definitely going to be up near the top of the leaderboard in these dual races. What's your strategy when it comes to the races tonight? You going to go up to the front, or are you going to try to stay out back?
Well, so I have a charter this season, unlike last season. So we'll see how people do early on. We're just here to have fun, so we're just gonna go with it. I think if we're up front, we'll stay up front and just hang out. I don't think I'm going to bail out to the back at all. We're just going to roll with it. Have a good time.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that earlier in the broadcast. I'll take a quick moment to note Jonathan Cutlet, 49.415 seconds on his qualifying lap. You see Chad Frankenfield on track. But we were talking about that, what a difference it makes being a charter driver versus an open driver. And you can speak to that literally from one season to the next. How much of a relief is it this season being able to just worry about getting the best position you can for next week's race instead of literally racing for a spot in the field?
It's the world's bit of difference. Your perspective on how you go into qualifying is completely different. You don't have to worry about being fast. You can just go and you're relaxed. You can do better without having to worry about having to do better. You go into the duels, it's not a race where you can't crash. It's just for fun. You know, if you finish 35th, you're 35th for the 500 or whatever. You got 200 laps to get the first. It doesn't matter. Whereas a season ago, I think I finished 27th in my duels. I'm not in the 500.
Gotcha. Well, I agree with that assessment, Corey. And obviously, you're going to be up at the front, I think, starting this 500. Definitely a good lap for you there. And any shout-outs before we send you off for the afternoon?
Just the guys back at the Motorsports, Elaine and Bren. I think they're somewhere around the teens, 20s. So definitely watch for them. They're good super speedway guys. They'll get up there in the duels. Jimmy Hayden Photography always takes some amazing photos. Check him out on Instagram. And you guys always put on a great show.
Oh, I just realized I have one more question for you. Where did the Terry Labonte paint scheme come from?
So, the Terry Labonte paint scheme. So the car, it's in honor of my grandmother. But her favorite driver was Terry. So that's where the inspiration comes from.
Gotcha. And that's a great inspiration and a great choice of driver. We love Terry.
Yeah, Terry's great.
Well, Corey, congratulations on the good qualifying run. We'll see if it sticks you on the front row for the 500. And, have a good night. Good luck in the duels.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, we'll see. I don't have my expectations aren't very high with the guys left to go, but we'll see.
All right. Thanks, Corey. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
Perhaps a little bit of a surprise on the timesheets during that interview. Chad Frankenfield, 49.465 seconds, 30th fastest right now, and maybe about to lose one more spot depending on where Johnny Thomas clocks in. Indeed, 19th quickest for Johnny Thomas in that machine. Also, Jesse Racimas, 49.435 seconds. He's 24th right now. You were looking at the 0-1 of Ryan Gable. The Lake Norman Motorsports car got some guy named Huck on the hood. I don't know what that's about.
Go Gavel!
We'll see what Ryan can do here in that 0-1 as he'll be looking to lay down a qualifying effort. What a storybook isn't the right word, but it was certainly a drama-filled season last season for Ryan, if we're being completely honest about it. Had some incredible runs and then some nights where he literally lost more points than he gained because he got into so much trouble in the principal's office. And in the end, he made the playoffs after all, and not quite the playoff he was hoping for. Not a lot of luck on his side when we got to the postseason. We'll see how the season starts for him. 23rd fastest right now. 40-0-1 of Ryan Gable.
Nick Delicato sporting a fresh 3-wide TV paint scheme for the Shift Esports group. He will he will run his lap here, and I want to note before we pull the next driver to the chat here that one of the guys that went while we were talking to Corey was Jesse Racimas. Jesse has changed teams. He is now going to be a member of Do Good Motorsports. And I figure what better segue to speak of Do Good than to talk to the head honcho of Do Good, Michael Goodman. So, Goody, it's David in the booth. If you've got us, you had a fantastic qualifying run. You're up here in 4th right now. What does that mean for your duel races tonight, buddy?
I guess just a better spot for the duels, but it's still pretty cool to lay down a lap like that. That's not really my forte usually. I thought I was going to be towards the back as usual, but Jeff kind of just told me a few things to try out with the settings, and just kind of did what I always do during the lap, and it didn't feel particularly great. I don't know if it was the temp temp-wise if I just got the luck of the draw there, but hell, I'll take it.
One thing I'm seeing is that wind is a factor because we have the live active weather. So occasionally we get the gust down the backstretch. You might have grabbed a gust, but hey, you'll take it. You're up here in fourth. Looking back at the Memorial race, I know we got to talk to you a little bit during that broadcast, but we didn't really get to talk to you after the race. What did you think of it? And hopefully, we raised a bunch of money there for your uncle.
Yeah, we raised. I didn't do the final math, but it was close to, if not over $350. So again, thanks to all the drivers who donated. That was awesome. Very generous of you guys. The race was awesome. How about Jordan Owens? I think he was like the 11th hour entry and ended up getting the win in dramatic fashion. Kind of reminded me of I don't know if you guys like the 2007 Daytona 500. So it's kind of cool.
You didn't have to go there, Goody. Goody.
Oh, Zach. Speaking of, I just have to tell you, I was kidding when I said Murphy Love Bug was my uncle's favorite movie, but I got a good kick out of that, and I'm sure upstairs he got a good kick out of that too.
So now I can't trust you for so many reasons. Here I had this beautiful segue here. I was going to be like Nick and Delicato. You saw his qualifying lap. He turned in a 49.444. All those fours for Goody, unfortunately, only good enough for, let's see, where is Mr. Indelicato right now? It's not good. It's 29th.
Yeah.
29th. David Tooker just clocked in 17th fastest. Before that, Ethan Stanley, 49.386, which is good for 8th. That was much better effort for Ethan. But, now I'm on Goody's bad side. I don't know about all of this. Anyway, we'll try to put that behind us, be professionals here as you see Tate Lytle on track. Look, obviously Do Good Motorsports, great season last year, but one place you guys have always been good is these super speedway tracks. You've put together a nice little qualifying effort here. Jeff Green's going to be one to watch when we get to the duels later tonight or next week. Does that help going into a night like tonight? Obviously, you have the charter, and it's always nice to fall back on that, but does that help to know you guys kind of have the super speedway stuff kind of figured out when it comes to the pressure of the duels and next week in the 500?
I think the pressure is always there in some degree. Just anything can happen. I think Tate can usually tell you that, how it's just kind of a crapshoot at that point. But I like the way, especially Dewar, and who won't be here tonight. He's pitching horseshoes. Good luck to him. Hopefully he's still doing pretty good. Him and Jeff Green, they work really well together, and I just try to piggyback off that and try to hang on. And if that 32 is going to be starting in the back for the Daytona 500, so hopefully he can work his way up front. He's one of the guys. I know he gets made fun of by some drivers about some of the erratic moves, but I'd really like to have him be pushing me towards the end of this thing next Wednesday.
How about your new teammate Jesse Ursemus? He won the pole, and I think he won the last Daytona race we ran in this car.
That's right, and him and Dewar were working good, and Ethan, who went back to Pro Edge. So, we gotta kind of expanding the network of guys we can work with, and that's always a good thing to have here at these plate tracks.
Quick time.
Ooh.
New fast time, Tyler Fody, 49.339 seconds. Before that, Tate Lytle clocked in 49.395 seconds. So a couple of solid little runs there, but obviously a new quick time, Tyler Fody. Now Ethan Burrell on track in the 37. You mentioned, and I'm going to go off topic here a little bit, but you mentioned, Dusty the Dragon Dewar pitching horseshoes. Is that I know usually he goes to the big national event each year. Is that what's going on now, or is it something else?
Yeah, it's the National Horseshoe pitching tournament. I can't remember. It's somewhere out west. I want to say Washington State, but can't exactly remember where. But I know he's had a few trying moments. It wasn't as easy as it was last year. He won his class. I think he's got some work to do, but I think he can still rally and hopefully come home with a trophy.
Well, and he just took the pole from Tyler Fode, but I did want to ask, as Ethan Burrell, we're on our last qualifier. Any hard feelings that Ethan's going back to Pro Edge over there, or did he share with you guys enough of the secrets to be able to, let him go back, with some grace there?
No, it's all bad blood for me, between me and Ethan, and so much bad blood we're sharing a ride in the Oscar series on Thursday. Probably what surprised me the most is him stealing Jeff on Monday nights, but I think that's just to kind of continue that some of the stuff that you can learn from those guys at Pro Edge. They're top-notch drivers, but I'll be glad to share a ride with Ethan, and he's still kind of welcomed in our do good chats and stuff like that to kind of bounce information off of. So even though it was only for one season, I think the bond that we formed there is going to last a lot longer.
Gotcha. Well, thanks a lot for joining us there for the end of qualifying, Goody. But yeah, we are actually done. So Goody, we'll send you off, and good luck in the duel tonight, buddy. Looks like you're going to be probably starting third in Duel 2. So enjoy.
Heck yeah. Thank you. Enjoy the show, guys.
So it looks like the software is not playing nicely with Huck. Britt Jones not the fastest in qualifying.
Practice results right there.
Yeah, those are. So Ethan Burrell claiming the pole for the home place brew. Daytona 500 next week. Tyler Fode securing a spot on the outside of the front row. That will be your front row next week. Those guys guaranteed first and second no matter what happens later this evening into Duels. What a relief that must be for those two drivers. Trey Holmes qualifying third, Corey Abbott fourth, Michael Hossack fifth, Michael Goodman, who you just heard from, qualifying sixth. Matthew Weeks, you saw he was the last qualifier. He clocked in 10th. Of course, Jess Story 7th, the fastest open driver. Connor Thompson 8th. Joshua Personette was 9th. So that's a look at kind of your top 10. We'll be in a little bit of a downtime here. We'll have a little bit of a lull. It'll take some time for elite officials to put together the lineups for our two dual races. It should be pretty close, but it typically not exactly odd cars first race, even cars second race. They will usually make an attempt to ensure the same number of open cars are in both races, which sometimes leads to some shuffling, but for the most part, that's got to be roughly your lineup for these duels. Coming up here as soon as officials can get those fired up. And yeah, so now we can kind of discuss, David, what we've seen so far. Obviously, great start to the season for Ethan Burrell and Tyler Fode. Maybe hear from some other drivers as well. It looks like actually we got a couple guys who have dropped into the waiting room we can bring in.
Yeah, let's talk to Carlos Acosta, who I believe is going to be, I think, our slowest driver. So let's talk to him. Hey, Carlos, is David in the booth? You got it?
Hey, there was one more.
Oh, there was Rucker, wasn't it? Well, Carlos, you're gonna be coming from the back. It looks like in this dual race, and you gotta race your way in. So what's the strategy there with your team group?
I just gotta get the fear that's in my head and just chuck it out the window because I have to go for it. I can't dilly-daddle. I can't hang on in the back. My only strategy is to make my way up front as quickly as I can and stay up there because I'm not thinking about being the first finisher among the open drivers. I need to go out there and win the race to make sure I'm for sure locked in.
Sounds good, buddy. And I guess that kind of answers our typical questions, at least for right now. But how's it going to work with your teammates there? Are you hoping that you got both teammates in your duel, or what's the plan if both of them are in the opposite duel of you?
Well, selfishly, in a perfect world, if I could have it, I would like to have Jess on the same duel as me because he's already locked in. He can push me without chance of him being locked out. But I definitely do not want to be in the same duel as Darren because we're both in the same team, both hoping for a spot. We already talked about it, and it's really going to be in essentially whatever position we're in, whoever's ahead of the other coming to the end. That's usually how we're going to have to go for it. But if if it needs to, I'll do what I can to make sure that one of our other teams is one of our other drivers for sure makes the race.
Of course, RK has been around for a little bit in other leagues, but kind of a new venture here on the Cup side here in Elite. How exciting is it? Obviously, a lot of pressure with the open deal, not just this week, but for the first few weeks of the season. But still, it's got to be, how exciting is it to be kind of venturing out into the Elite Cup Series here this season with the team, Carlos?
It's exciting for sure. I ran the ARCA season last year or last season with Jess, in the same team, and that was fun as an experimental thing. I also ran the Cup side. I tried to get an open charter. I tried to get a charter, I should say. Didn't qualify for the first half of the season because I'm really horrible at qualifying. Made some races, and then I had some schedule changes at the end of the season where I couldn't make some of the races. But this year, bringing 3 drivers to the Cup Series, and all 3 of us are going to attempt to get charters, and it's exciting. It's already great to have one driver lock himself into the race. Now we just need the other 2 to lock themselves into the race, and the quicker we can qualify for races, the easier it's going to be for us to earn those charters.
Awesome. Well, Carlos, we appreciate it. Good luck tonight. Obviously, you're one of the producers over here, and I know me and Zach both have worked with you for a number of years at this point. So we definitely will be rooting you on, and good luck tonight, and give it your best because at the very least you get to race tonight, 100%. So hop in there and go for it, buddy.
Yeah, I'm racing tonight. I'm going to do the best I can.
All right, that's Carlos Acosta, driver of the 02 RK Motorsports car. And now we've got just a bunch of drivers in this waiting room. Should we talk to pole sitter Ethan Burrell first? Should we
Yeah,
go?
we should probably start with him, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So let's talk to Ethan Burrell, the pole sitter, maybe surprise pole sitter a little bit, over joining back with Pro Edge, Ethan. So we got a couple of things to talk to you about. But first of all, congratulations on the pole. You will be leading the field to the green for next week's home place beer Daytona 500.
Dude, it's crazy. I don't know. What I was telling everyone when they're congratulating me, I was like, I don't know what happened. I'm usually like mid-pack qualifying here, and yeah, maybe it's coming back to Pro Edge or what, or the nice paint scheme Jonathan Cutlip painted up for me or what. But man, yeah, it's crazy. I didn't think I'd get anywhere near Trey Holmes' lap, and then Bodie put up the best lap right before mine, and yeah, it was nuts, man.
Well, that definitely changes the mood going into the rest of the evening. Not that you were in any danger of missing the race. You've got the charter and all of that, but obviously now you can really just go have fun in this duel, right?
That's right, and it really changes the approach for the 500 too, because I usually start around mid-pack in the 500, and usually don't do great in the duel, and then I kind of have to decide, if I want to hang out at the back or not. But I guess maybe I'll go into the 500 just thinking stay safe at the front somewhere. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, man. But yeah, tonight's gonna be a blast. I can't wait to chop it up in the duel and try to go win.
How do you feel about the way this car races based on your experience in that Clash race on Monday? And your obviously previous couple of races in this car, it tends to be pretty wild with regard to the drafting and the pulling up and everything, and we saw your teammate win on Monday. I guess what are you thinking about here going in, because the way this thing is drafting, it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's this package. You kind of have to have some screws loose to really put yourself in contention. The runs are crazy. It seems like we might be overheating a little bit quicker than we have before, so that could be a factor. But yeah, you got to be super confident and take all the crazy huge runs that you get and keep it going straight. It's easier said than done, but yeah, you have to drive the wheels off this thing.
Before we let you go, Ethan, who do you have to shout out for this poll effort here?
Yeah, shout out the guys at Pro Edge, man. It's good to be back. Shout out all the guys at Do Good Motorsports as well. Wishing them the best in these speed weeks, and thanks to you guys for always putting on such a great show. I love having you guys up here, and yeah, let's go get after it. And shout out Jonathan Cutlip too for the new paint.
It is pole sitter for next week's Daytona 500, Ethan Burrell. Congratulations, Ethan, and I think for sure you'll be leading Duel 1 to the green flag. So, good luck in that race as well.
All right, thanks guys.
That was Ethan Burrell. Should we grab his teammate Matthew Weeks? Darren Staff's been here the longest. Maybe we'll grab him first. Yeah, well, here we go. It's Darren Staff was the one we're grabbing, and we've talked to both of the other RK Motorsports team cars, Darren, but you guys are all open cars trying to race your way into the 500, and Jess locked his way in on qualifying speed. What do you think you're going to have to do here tonight to make it into the 500 next Wednesday?
Yeah, thank you guys for pulling me up here, by the way. Honestly, my mentality, even before entering in here, is that if I got the front row time and I was in on the speed, then great. But even heading into tonight, I knew the mentality was I probably am going to be racing in the duel to get in, and most importantly, I'm going for the win. I don't feel like there's any other option for me. Is that the best option is to just go out there and win. So that's the game plan. Get to the front and win the duel. That's the only chance I'm going to get to lock myself into the 500.
Looks like you are going to be in Duel 2, and you are going to be in the same duel as your teammate Carlos, according to the latest update, I believe. So, with that, what is going to be the game plan between you guys? Are you going to work together to try to get? I think both of you can make it in, but it would take you to be finishing higher than the second top finisher of the open cars in Duel 1. So you'll know what you need to do. But are you going to work together, or are you just going to go out there and try to do your own things?
I mean, the best possible situation, I think, for us to 100% lock us both in is finishing 1-2, which I have done before recently at Daytona with this team. But yeah, no, pretty much I think we're gonna still work together, but near the end, bygones are gonna be bygones, so you're gonna have to go for yourself and try to go out and win. That's really the only option that we're gonna have if I want to make the 500. But obviously, I'm going to try to help him as much as I can to make sure we both get in.
All right. Any questions for Darren there, Zach?
I don't think I have anything. Just obviously good luck. Now we're starting to get these duel lineups in, getting an idea what the situation is for you, Darren, and we wish you the best of luck here in the second duel.
Yeah, thankfully, unlike the qualifying run, I'm able to actually watch the first duel and see what if there's any pit strategy we have to do, or what the racing is going to look like. At least I have an idea on that.
Gotcha. Well, congrats, Darren, and good luck tonight, and we'll see if you can make your way in.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Darren, staff driver, the 55 car for RK Motorsports, and trying to grab all our drivers. Let's grab last year's champion, Matthew Weeks, and bring him up and give the defending champ a talking to, both of this Daytona 500 race and of the overall championship. Matthew, it was a bit of a crazy season for you, but you kind of led wire to wire there. So, is the plan the same this year to go in there and go out and get yourself another Daytona 500 win? It'd be your third, I believe.
Definitely. I want to be the first to hit that 3 in the Daytona 500s and the first to go back to back. Since Tate won 3 in a row in the championship department, you can't do that again. So I want to do something that no one has not done in Elite yet. So that'd be cool to do.
Obviously, Matthew, a solid start to the program this evening. 10th fastest in qualifying. It gives you a solid little starting position going into this duel. How much are you going to be able to take from the duel tonight and apply next week when there's twice as many cars on track?
You be taking a lot of how people handle the pushes and how they push you tonight. because it's afternoon, so we get more of an idea. The Clash we raced at night, so the temps lasted a little longer. So I feel like we're going to burn up quicker during the day. It's going to be crazy. The blocks are going to be crazy. So it's just trying to figure out, especially with the new guys, how these guys are going to race. And I think the duels is a good way to figure out who you want to work with in the 500 and who you don't. So that's going to be my goal tonight, and then try to stay up front and get a better starting spot for the 500 so I can stay up front, because it's harder to come from midfield in the back at Daytona to get towards the front than it is at Dega. So your main goal is to want to start in the top 10 no matter what, I think.
Matthew, did I believe you finished second over in the Clash on Monday. Are you taking anything from that race as well? When it comes to how to make the move, because it looked like when you and Tate got side by side in that Clash race, it very nearly cost you guys the race versus, working out kind of the way it did. And I don't know that I would bet on that working the same way next time. So, did you learn anything from that last lap?
Yeah, I should have probably been ready to defend that move earlier. I didn't think Tate was going to make the move right in 4. But I don't think there's much he could have done, because even when he made that move, if I cut down and try to block it, he was already there and we would have wrecked. But once you get side by side with someone, it just completely slows the cars down and everyone behind catches up. And I think that's 2 seasons in a row I was leading on the last lap in the Clash, and something happened. My games last season, and then Tate got too hot. He had a bill, or he would have blew up. So I mean, yeah, you want to be up front. You really want to be the leading, or you want to be second, I think. And that'd be the best spot to be in to win the 500 no matter what, because that's where I won it last season. Clark helped me do that. So it's all about trying to time your move right, because like Tate done it early and everyone caught us. If he waited probably until halfway to where he's about to pit, where he starts slowing down, those guys would have never caught us and we would have had a drag race to the line. So it just depends on when you pull out, if those guys back there are going to be able to catch you or not. So hopefully people are smart enough and realize that and wait till late so we don't have to race 10 cars to the line.
Before we let you go, Matthew, obviously got to give you a chance to make some shout-outs, but also couldn't help but notice, it's still mostly a very similar looking car to a Matthew Weeks machine, but a little bit of extra flair on it this year. So I'm sure at the very least you've got somebody you got to shout out in the old painting department.
At JV Designs, my buddy Justin Vandermeer, man, he paints all my schemes. They look amazing. I've had that red scheme for a couple seasons now, probably like 2 years, I think, so probably longer. So I thought it was time for a change, and we put that car back. We won a couple chips in it, so we wanted to come out fresh. The car looks amazing. I love the car, probably my favorite car of all time. So shout out to Justin, man. His schemes are amazing, and John as well. John Cutlip, he makes amazing schemes. He probably makes 75% of the Cutfield schemes that you see on track tonight. He does a good job. And shout out to all the Pro Edge guys, fueled up. We all had a good qualifying session, and we're about to go tear up some race cars tonight.
All right. Well, thank you, Matthew, and congratulations on last year's championship. And then obviously you'll have a good starting spot here in duel number 1. So looking forward to seeing you up there running up front.
Oh yeah, we're full send. I don't care where we start, man.
Awesome. That's Matthew Weeks, last year's champion and the defending champion of the Daytona 500. And I believe we are down to just one driver that is in this waiting room that we haven't interviewed yet. So let's bring up Gavin Hibbs and talk to the 95 car. Gavin, last year's winner at Talladega, you definitely know how to get it done on these plate tracks. Tell us what it's going to take here tonight at Daytona. You're locked into the field. I don't think you were locked in last year either. So what's it going to take to win tonight at Daytona?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one tonight for sure. But our 2 Daytona races last year haven't really gone our way. We got wrecked out of both. But I think our goal is just right in the back at the in the early parts, and then try and make our way up within the last 15 to 10 laps. But I think with this field, it's going to be a lot more competitive and a lot more challenging to get up to the front.
Certainly, it seems like the level of competition goes up just a little bit more with each season here in Elite. But I mean, you in a way you've been a part of that as well. You're one of the more recent racers to join here in the Cup Series, and you've had a pretty solid start to the career, I'd say, here in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. How do you feel going into this season?
I feel a lot more confident in myself compared to last season. Last season was more of just trying to get a feel for things because I really haven't really raced this next gen car as much as some of these guys in this league has. But with the results that we had some weeks last year, and the win at Talladega, it gives me a lot more confidence heading into this season that we could definitely be better than what we were last year.
Well, Gavin, and Gerald and I were up here in the booth last year, and we caught you bouncing it off the fence a lot. But the funny part is you won Talladega running the high side, so you sure showed us same plan this year. And any shout outs for us here before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, obviously shout out my company, Hibbs Designs, my buddies, our company, Joe Numbers by Joe, and Shift Esports for bringing me back on once again for 2024B, and let's hope we can have more success this year.
Awesome. Well, that's Gavin Hibbs, driver of the 95 Shift Esports car. Good luck tonight, Gavin, and we'll hope to see you at the front.
Thank you, boys, and thank you guys again for putting on the broadcast each and every week.
All right,
Appreciate it. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say that's Gavin Hibbs. We'll see him here shortly in the Duels. And speaking of which, this is probably gonna be a good time for us, David. Obviously, on the back end side here, on the iRacing side, gotta make the switch over from the qualifying session to the Duel session. So this might be a good time for us to take a little step away, a little break here. Let Dave work his magic behind the scenes, and when we see you on the other side, we're gonna go racing here for the first Duel this evening.
Welcome back for duel number 1 for the Home Place Brewing Company Daytona 500. I am once again David Westergreen. With me, as per usual, will be Zach Evans, and David Huckleberry is on the producing side. An exciting race. It looks like it's going to be a night race here, Zach, and I think that'll mean that the speeds will be up, as Matthew Weeks I think alluded to while we were talking to him in the dual race. If it's nighttime, speeds are up. Everything's a little bit crazier. I think that's what we're going to experience tonight with these dual races.
Definitely a cooler track, quicker times. The intensity's going to ratchet up, of course, too. Everybody kind of cast their die with the qualifying time. Some guys know going into a single car qualifying, that's not their forte. And especially for these open drivers, all the pressure on the line now. Only one guy we know for sure is going to make it out of this duel. Maybe a second driver, depending on how the second duel plays out, but definitely a lot of drivers are going to be fighting to be that number one man on the open charts to ensure they're back with us this time next week.
Right, you are. And with that, I think we can probably pull up the starting grid for duel number 1 here. The pole sitter for next week's race is also on the pole for this week's duel. It'll be Ethan Burrell in the 37 car, last year's championship runner-up. And alongside him will be third place qualifier, just missing out on locking himself onto the front row, Trey Holmes. Row 2 will be Michael Hosak and Jess Story. Row 3 is Joshua Personet and defending champion and Daytona 500 champion Matthew Weeks. Row 4, Chris Wright and Raymond Hanneman, the first of all of the orange open cars that you'll see on our scoring pylon. Jess Story obviously in green. That means he is locked into this Daytona 500 on his speed. Josh Robin will start 9th. Richie Hearn will start 10th. David Tooker and Jonathan Cutlip will be in row 6.
Starting with row 7, Johnny Thomas lining up 13th. Gerald Campbell will be alongside him in the 14th position. Ryan Gable will start in the 15th spot. Jake Scarborough lines up 16th. Justin Fortner starting 17th. Nick Indelicato will roll off from the 18th position. The 10th row on the field, Jaden Racimus in the 07. Frank Fody in the 41. Then row 11, Chad Frankenfield, Mark Rabilas. Shotgun on the field, 23 cars here in duel number 1. Ryan Schult in car 4 for Little Eagle Racing.
23 cars starting this duel race. We might have a couple of late entrants here before gridding finishes, but there's a look at your pole-winning car, Ethan Burrell. That'll lead us to the green in this duel, and it will lead us to the green next week in the 500. So you did see all of the orange open qualifiers there. As we keep an eye on those cars throughout tonight, just want to go over one more time what it's going to take for those drivers to make it into the Daytona 500. Again, they will need to be the top open finisher in this race. That car will lock into the Daytona 500, and then if the second open finisher in this race is higher than that of Duel 2, they will also race in the Daytona 500 next week. So we will take a guaranteed 1, potentially 2 open cars from this race. I think there's 6 or 7 open cars in each race here, so there's certainly going to be some spots to be gained from this duel race. It's going to be an exciting one.
Andrew Rucker was set to be in this duel, but did not grid, so he's going to be added to Duel 2. So we have everybody.
Excellent. I will note that we're missing a few of our full-time drivers. We heard a lot about Dusty Dewar, but we're also missing Scott Crump in the 90 car for Lake Norman Motorsports. He had a baby this week, and that is why he is missing this qualifying session and duel race, but he'll start the Daytona 500 from the back.
Yeah, obviously that's congratulations are in order for Scott Crump. Great news for him, and wishing him and the family well on the new edition.
We are indeed. So let's have some fun. We'll fire off some picks for this duel race. Zach, who do you got?
Oh boy. Let's get weird. how about we saw him run well in his duel last season. How's Frank Fody sound for getting weird?
I love it. I love it. Frank's definitely a fun one to watch. One of our open drivers in that 41 Bite-Size Sports Chevy. I'm going to go with Michael Hosak in that 24 car. He's chartered in. He qualified really well in ARCA and led a bunch of laps on Tuesday. I think he's going to have some fortune change this season. So I'm going Michael Hosak 24 car. Dave, who you got?
Sorry, I was muted. I will take Gerald Campbell. I think Gerald's going to race his way in.
Awesome.
He was in contention for sure in the clash earlier this week. We'll see 23 cars here lined up. Pace car making the left-hand turn onto pit road. We are about to begin the first duel of the evening here at Daytona.
Green flag is out. Ethan Burrell on the loud pedal. Trey Holmes on the loud pedal to his outside, and that outside lane already grouped up very tight. Trey Holmes will be in the lead in turn 1.
Field off into turn number 1. You see that 88 car out front. Trey Holmes on the inside. Ethan Burrell working that bottom lane. Obviously, seeing the cars at speed, I'm sure Dave will be a little bit of a learning curve for us. First time we're seeing a lot of these cars for the new season, but hopefully we'll get you up to speed here quickly. One guy up to speed very quickly. The quickest open car, Jess Story, jumping down to the bottom and trying to get out front.
The guy that's making moves is Jonathan Cutlip. He cut 3 wide, went around Richie Hearn. Now he's 3 wide around Raymond Hanneman, and he's got him in the middle of the racetrack. Jonathan Cutlip, the 5 FedEx Chevy, coming to the front very quickly from mid-pack starting spot. He started 12th. He's already up into the top 5. Help from David Tooker, and he's bringing Johnny Thomas along with him. Trey Holmes led lap number 1 with help from Matthew Weeks.
Indeed, already seeing the pressure ramp up. Right now, that outside line has the run. Trey Holmes out front, Matthew Weeks in tow. So is Jonathan Cutlip. So is the 19 of David Tooker. We'll see what he has in store here in this duel race.
Obviously, the duel's a little bit randomly assigned. You've got, what, 4 of our 5 Pro Edge Toyotas all grouped together here. Matthew Weeks, David Tooker, Ethan Burrell. I suppose Jonathan Cutlip is not a Pro Edge Toyota. He and Trey Holmes also teammates in that fueled up group, but they are very closely knit with the Pro Edge guys. So 5 guys from the kind of the same stable. And I'm looking through this field. I think I only see 1 Lake Norman car, maybe 2 with Ryan Gable. So race 1's definitely going to be the Pro Edge show here, I think, tonight. And race number 2, that might be the Lake Norman show.
Certainly could be strength in numbers in these duel races. It's funny how those trends work out by the luck of the draw based on those qualifying efforts. Jess Story right now, you heard him in his interview. He was hoping to be able to work with one of his teammates at RK Motorsports. They're both in the other duel. All he can do now is try to give himself the best possible starting position next week. And right now, he is up front on that outside line, but to the inside, you see that 5 car, Jonathan Cutlip. He's been making moves early. He's leading that bottom lane. He's in front of Ethan Burrell in the 37. Those 2 guys front of the field here on lap 4.
Jonathan Cutlip, dicing and slicing, worked his way all the way up to the lead. Got a lap led. Now he's settled in on the bottom of the racetrack in front of his buddy Ethan Burrell. Jess Story definitely up front here, kind of by himself, I would say, to some extent. He's certainly not affiliated with any of this group of fueled up or Pro Edge racing drivers, but he's certainly, the kind of guy that can make some friends right here. He can draft with these guys, show he can take a push, show he can really push people to the lead and lead a line well, and I think that'll go a long way towards Jess Story being able to make some friends for that Daytona 500 next week.
And let's be honest, that's going to be important for, not necessarily that he's a rookie by any means in Elite, but he is definitely one of the newer faces on a new team. There you see some insider info. Anytime you can earned some respect on the track in one of these duel races, it goes a long way towards helping you out long term, whether it be next week in the 500 or later in the season. Right now, lots of guys seeing what Jess Story is capable of at the front of this field.
Yeah, and it's been a while for Jess Story, I think, running with this group, but he is a veteran of, working with a bunch of these guys, and, they know him. So he's certainly not quite as unfamiliar as some other guys in this field. I'm looking back here like a Jake Scarborough, Jaden Racimus. Definitely the first time I've seen either of those guys in a Cup Series car at this level. And so those guys are going to need to draft and work with, other guys around them and make some friends. And, they got like Johnny Thomas, who's a former Daytona 500 winner, right in the middle of this pack. As we're on board with Jonathan Cutlip in P2, you'll notice there's no outside line. It's fallen away for whatever reason. The bottom is just flown forward, and I don't know what happened. Maybe the second car in line got a little bit hot and checked up that outside line, but all of a sudden it's single file from first through fifth.
Yeah, Raymond Hanneman just jumped up to the top. I think he's got to try and get it back.
To wreck.
Oh boy,
they're four wide.
All kinds of cars out of shape there, and Raymond Hanneman's going to end up falling to the back. He kind of jumped out there to try and get this top lane going, and then it swarmed him like a bunch of angry bees, and he has been drop kicked all the way down the running order here. What a tough break for Raymond Hanneman, kind of getting punished for, like I say, trying to get that outside row going, but now he's all the way back in 17th with 3 open cars ahead of him.
And we talked to Raymond Hanneman. He said he's going to go for it, and jumping to the outside line from a very stable inside line to try and make it happen is certainly going for it, but he's already, that's something he can file away, right? We're lap 8 of...
Oh, no!
Oh, God, Chris Wright sideways! They saved it. What a save by Chris Wright. Johnny Thomas pushed Chris Wright on corner exit, and it got that 9 car just a little bit swirly. Chris was able to save it. He'll even stay in the pack. I don't think there's going to be any harm or foul on that.
Yeah, that was an incredible save from Chris Wright. You saw how sideways that car was coming off of the turn number 2, but he's able to not just keep the car under control, but he stayed in this pack here. So still has some work to do to, move back forward position-wise, but at least he is in the draft. It could be much, much worse for him at this point.
It absolutely could be. Could have wiped out his entire duel race, but as it stands, he's back in the pack. And up front, the battle is for the lead. Johnny Thomas has arrived on the scene with help from Matthew Weeks, and Johnny now gives the bumper to Trey Holmes. He now dices to the bottom of the racetrack, and Johnny Thomas, last year's Rockingham winner, he'll go for the race win here or the duel win here at Daytona. Early on, he'll go for the lead at Daytona. Win still a bit away.
Still a little bit away. And it's worth noting, Dave, we did the broadcast on Sunday at Old Daytona, Legacy Daytona, with the Gen 4 cars. Obviously, there was also the Clash on Monday. But both of those races had that competition caution at lap 20. Kind of, for all intents, there were some tire games on Sunday night, but for the most part, it took the strategy away from these drivers. Gonna be a little bit different, I think, tonight without that caution to see how that all plays out over the course of these 50 laps.
Yes, absolutely. It's Matthew Weeks now going for the race lead. He dices out in front of Johnny Thomas, pulls that 83 car forward, and Matthew Weeks, sporting that new paint scheme for 213 Simware, he's going to go for a lap lead here in the duel. I think he'll get it. Big push from Johnny Thomas at the line. It is Matthew Weeks. And yeah, I think these guys are going to pit when their fuel tank runs out. I think you have to just wait for the fuel to go dry in this first stint, but you will want to come with friends because if you come down pit road by yourself with this package, these guys run very well in the draft, but if the car gets out separated by itself, you're multiple seconds slower than everybody else, and you will lose the draft and go a lap down. Even if a slight mistake is made on pit road, that can also ruin your duel race in just a 50-lap race.
Certainly, that from reports from the garage certainly seemed to be an issue last night in the ARCA race for some guys. Had some green flag pit stops, some issues, some guys fighting the gremlins, trying to get on pit road. And let me tell you, it sounds like a very simple concept. It's hard enough at most tracks to get onto pit road under green flag without losing control of the vehicle. But when you have so much pressure, when it's usually in this kind of dual race, your only chance to come to pit road if it falls during green flag, with a chance to be into 500 next week on the line, knowing how valuable literally every half a second is on this racetrack, there is so much pressure going into those pit stops.
There is, and I'm one to talk about pit road, right? But you cannot win the race on pit road, but you can certainly lose the race on pit road. I've done it myself many a time. It is heartbreaking because that is the one thing you can definitely control, is entering pit road at speed, not speeding on pit road, not sliding through your box. That's all on you. It's not the other drivers. And there could be issues, incidents coming down pit road, and those obviously not on you. But I mean, the like you said, the pressure of the pit stop, the difficulty at which it is to get that car slowed down in the big pack, and they're very tight here coming off of turn 4. We're gonna get the straightaway shot. They are too wide all the way back through the field here, and that is the big kicker, is can these guys come to pit road without causing any incidents, as we almost had 2 different cars hit the wall coming through the tri-oval. Richie Hearn was one. Richie is close down on the door of Jake Scarborough, and Scarborough and Raymond Hanneman, 2 open drivers, are going to cut 3 wide through the middle, but they are chasing after Frank Fody there on the bottom in that black and red car.
And one driver we do see ever so briefly in the frame there, a change in the program, if you will. I have to do a little erasing with the pencil. Mark Reblos now in car 96. I'm going to be honest with you, fans. We're not really sure how the car just magically changed appearance between...
They're claiming he put the number on
Duels.
upside down. So.
It's
a sticker.
How do you get one of the numbers upside down, though? That's the real question. Gerald Campbell is now a second and a half off the pack. Ryan Schold even further back. There was a bit of a checkup last time through down the back straightaway while we had our eye on Mark Rebelos, and that isn't so bad for Ryan Schold. That's a car that's chartered into this race, missed qualifying entirely, but it's locked. The big issue is Gerald Campbell, a guy who we talked to early in qualifying, was pretty confident in his ability to get up to the front of the field, but for whatever reason, the checkup and stuff has lost him the draft, and I think, barring a caution, that might spell the end of Gerald Campbell's hopes of getting into the 500 next week.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough break. Like you say, without a yellow, there's just no way. I mean, obviously, it looks like right now he's maybe dragging the brake a little bit to bring Ryan Schold to him so they can at least work together. But still, 2 cars working together, not going to be nearly as fast as that pack of cars. You see the update from race control, a little bit of a transmission issue for Ryan Schold. And look, yes, if you're watching this, no, these aren't real race cars, but sometimes those mechanical or technical things that can happen, a downshift you weren't expecting, even a blink of the internet connection, or any kind of issue with the computer can absolutely derail your evening.
It sure can. And while we're watching these guys back here up in the front of the field where we're too wide for the lead, there is a group of drivers, and you can see them there. They're led by Nick and Delicato in that 10 bright blue car. They have taken to the outside, and they are rolling the top right now, and Nick is now behind his teammate Jake Scarborough for Shift Esports, and Nick has he was dead last in the pack not 2 laps ago, and he and Ryan Gable hooked up, and they have rocketed around a couple of different drivers, Richie Hearn being one, Raymond Hanneman being another, and Delicato starting to work his way towards the front after kind of lagging back a little bit early in this race, and now he is right behind his open teammate. We'll see if Delicato deploys some tactics to help work with that 52 car and try to lock it into the field.
Now we see Chris Wright jumping up to the top side, trying to get that outside rolling again, but couldn't quite form up. You mentioned earlier in the night, Dave, the garbage chute, and you also mentioned earlier in this duel how important it is to make friends. Right now, Raymond Hanneman, one of the rookies this season.
Raymond just hit the wall.
Well, yeah, there's that. I was just about to talk about. He found himself in the garbage chute. He had no friends at all. Went to the back for the second time we've seen already tonight. And man, it's been a tough start to the race. It can get very frustrating when that happens 2 or 3 times in a row, but he's got to keep his head on straight, got to keep that composure. Like we talked about in his interview, he won in the truck series here last season. He can get the job done. He may be a rookie. Oh, was that Richie? Okay,
Yeah.
definitely one of the team cars there. Richie Hearn almost collecting the wall and costing him some ground on the high side. Hopefully there's not too much damage and maybe he can just fall to the back of this inside line and settle down. But now up front, it's mixing up again. We're 3 wide once more.
When I wanted to talk about Richie Hearn. Johnny Thomas is about to end up in the sucker hole, is what's going to happen here, unfortunately. Johnny gave a big shot to Nick and Delicato, and now the 83 car heading to the back, down through the garbage chute. But Johnny had been up at the front for a long time right there. Oh, we're going to get him a turn. Matthew Weeks head on the wall. Johnny's involved. Rebelos involved. Hey, Hanneman's going to be done. Weeks is going to be done. Justin Fortner's got big damage. I can't see who that is. Smashed in with Matthew Weeks. It might be Ryan Gable. It is Ryan Gable. And Johnny just ended up in this wreck. He had just pushed Nick and Delicato through. Let's take a look and see what happened here. And it looks like Gable's going to get into Raymond Hanneman and Matthew Weeks. A near identical wreck in the sim to Ryan Blaney here a couple years ago when he got turned head on into the outside wall in turn 3.
Definitely a tough break, especially for Raymond Hanneman, one of those open drivers. He's going to take some significant damage here, but Matthew Weeks really hard into the wall. I think pretty much immediately you saw the telltale smoke of engine damage from Matthew Weeks as soon as he was in the wall. We'll have to get an update from pit road here and see how much damage some people have. I see Matthew Weeks with the meatball flag, Johnny Thomas the meatball flag, Ryan Gable the meatball flag, which for those who may not be familiar with the iRacing terminology, you get that black flag with an orange circle inside of it when you have damage that must be repaired in order to continue in the race. Now, admittedly, excuse me, in these next-gen cars, sometimes that's as simple as a bent wheel. It might only take 25, 30 seconds to replace. I guarantee you that's not Matthew Weeks' problem.
No, they're going to need a new car for Matthew Weeks. Yeah, Johnny's got no front nose. Justin Fortner's got no front nose. Josh Personet's got some heavy damage. Raymond Hanneman's got big damage. And the big name there, obviously Raymond Hanneman, one of the drivers trying to race his way into this Daytona 500. He is likely going to struggle to make it in here. I saw a lot of guys come down pit road, grab fuel only. I will note the one major benefactor from this caution flag was Gerald Campbell, and I guess the second one was Ryan Schultz. They were well off the pack, and they are now caught up.
Definitely a huge break for Gerald Campbell. You saw everybody come down pit road. Might take out some of that strategy. I believe we should be good on fuel to the end here. Obviously, you saw some guys take tires, some guys choose to take just fuel. Race control, racing incident, no further action from them. Might be a good chance here, Dave, while we have this caution, to work in an ad break and pay some bills before we get back underway here at Daytona.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
The Bommarito Automotive Group 500 at Worldwide Technology Raceway is not just a race, it's a spectacle. Go to www.raceway.com now because the first deal is the best deal.
And we are back with duel number 1 here after a medium-sized wreck. And I'll throw it to Dave here, David Huckleberry, to give us a sponsor read or
Well-
two here for this last lap. We don't have it yet. There you go. No,
You
go
got
ahead.
one more. Yeah, we're on the
One
back
more.
stretch.
Awesome. And that's perfect because we're just about to go back to green after pit stops there. Chris Wright assumes the race lead, and his best friend David Tooker on his outside. Those guys had a run in the last time we were at Daytona, and they now lead us back to the green. Michael Hosak and Jake Scarborough in row 2. Green flag is out. Wright has a fairly big advantage over Hosak, and that's going to open up that outside lane, but Wright jumps up in front of it.
Indeed, Chris Wright leading the way. He got that track position by electing to go fuel only with that pit stop. Now it's him and David Tooker out front while everybody else tries to figure out how things will go to start off. Jake Scarborough, worth noting, that orange banner beside his name first. Open driver, but got some guys trying to change that at the moment, including that 07 of Jaden Racimus. But here comes a train of cars on the bottom. Trey Holmes is going to hook up here. He's got Nick Indelicato just in front of him, and Jake Scarborough is now to the lead.
No, he's in the
long?
lead for a second. Chris Wright
Now he's in the
jumps to
sucker
the
hole.
outside, and Jake Scarborough's heading to the back, unfortunately. That does turn over the lead of the open drivers to Jaden Racimus. You just mentioned him there, and that green and white 07 car on the bottom, that's currently the leader of those open cars. Scarborough went from first to, looks like 16th in one corner. Tough break for Jake Scarborough. Had his teammate in Delicato there, but they tried to control both lanes, and I think Chris Wright wasn't so keen on following in behind somebody he hasn't really run with. And there's just a little of that unfamiliarity where, Trey Holmes has run with Nick and Delicato quite a bit, but Chris Wright has definitely not spent very much time racing with Jake Scarborough.
Man, this has been really interesting to watch. As now you see Trey Holmes giving the push to Nick Indelicato, trying to get out front. The way that, just getting in that middle lane, obviously you had talked about the garbage chute, the sucker hole, whatever you want to call it. Just for whatever reason, if you get a car to your inside and your outside, you are done for. It doesn't matter what you have done up to that point. And it's got to be really interesting to watch because, you saw how quickly that changed the race for Jake Scarborough, and that could happen to somebody on the last lap.
Right, and it could happen to one of our open drivers, and that's maybe the biggest question mark is, do the open drivers, try to play it safe right here, and Chad Frankenfield tries to get around Richie Hearn via that middle lane. Richie doesn't really have the help up top. It's just Josh Robin up there. Now they're 3 wide, and you can see how slow 3 wide really slows you down. Now Richie's in the wall. Man, it slowed up that outside line so much that bottom is just rocketed forward. It slowed down Jake Scarborough. It slowed down Jess Story. Robin's now all the way at the back. Just even that little bit of side-by-side racing just winds up slowing all the cars down because the side draft in this next-gen car is so powerful.
Still green flag racing here. You see him side-by-side from about 4th on back. Ethan Burrell jumping up to the high side. He's running in the 4th position. He gets it from Chris Wright. He's got to try to lead that outside lane forward, but man, Trey Holmes and Nick Indelicato are hooked up on that bottom side right now.
They are indeed. And as Jonathan Cutlip jumps to the top side of his teammate Trey Holmes and gets in front of Ethan Burrell, I want to note that Cutlip and Burrell, for whatever reason, held on pit road for a really long time. Not sure if they had damage or what, as Cutlip back to the bottom of the racetrack, but both of them restarted at the back of this field. It took them all of one lap to get up into the top 5. So Burrell and Cutlip are two guys that I think you've got to watch out for when it comes to the end of this race. Burrell, obviously the pole sitter, nothing to lose in terms of starting position. Cutlip, very quick on these super speedways. He's certainly going to have an opportunity to win it. But those two rocketed through the field so quickly that I just have a sneaking suspicion that we'll see them making moves similar to that later in this race as the newcomers to the front, this Little Eagle Racing Ford group of Justin Fortner, Ryan Scholden, Chad Frankenfield, they have found their way up into this top group.
Yeah, they're up there in the top group. They've separated just a little bit here. I believe that was Justin Fortner that dropped to the bottom. Well, now he's found a buddy in old Ryan Scholden, the 4-car just in front of him. And now they've got Ethan Burrell as well. So now, just as quickly, the guy that was alone on the bottom, now they've got all the family on the bottom except for Chad Frankenfield, third in line in the highest side in that 15 car.
Don't look now, but the leader of our open drivers is now Gerald Campbell in the 00 car, and that's that silver and red car on your screen in the middle. And he's right in front of Jake Scarborough. That's currently the battle to race your way into the Daytona 500 next week here with 22 laps to go. And Gerald, remember, was 15 seconds behind the field before that big wreck in turn 3. Now he's up here in the top 10, leading the open cars, but that outside line kind of dying a little bit. And we're seeing the inside line surge forward. Gerald able to fit down into the bottom lane right in front of Jake Scarborough and hold that first in the open drivers section for Gerald Campbell. Oh, Chris Wright and Chad Frankenfield.
Man, a little bit of contact there. They keep it all straight. I believe that was Trey Holmes that briefly found himself on the apron, but was able to keep things under control. Now they'll try to sort that back out. We saw a car on the apron there. Johnny Thomas trying to get back up to speed. Obviously, a lot of damage on that 83 car. It looked like the front bumper was still gone on it. Indeed it is. So, not much he's got to be able to do. He's a lap down, but definitely making laps, hoping, I mean, that's big picture racing, though, right? As long as he can keep making laps, if there's another big incident that takes out some drivers, every spot you can pick up here tonight is 2 spots in the starting lineup next week.
There was a bit of an incident there when the checkup happened for Chris Wright. Jake Scarborough got on the binders, and in so doing, checked 5 cars out of the back of the field. Jess Story is one, Scarborough is one, Raymond Hanneman is one. So 2 of our open drivers and Jess Story, who's locked into this race, along with Josh Person and Richie Hearn, they have fallen now 3 seconds off of the lead pack. That group is going to need a caution in order to catch up and have a chance, and it includes 2 of our open drivers, Jake Scarborough and Raymond Hanneman. And Hanneman's car very clearly still damaged, not running as well as these other group of 4 in front of him. So yeah, they're going to be in trouble when it comes to making it into the race here if we don't get another caution.
Indeed, they will need another caution to get back into the mix, but let me tell you, some of the moves we're seeing up front with 19 laps to go still, that is an eternity at a track like Daytona. I mean, that's almost 50 miles of racing we still have left to go here. There's I don't want to say there will be a caution, but I say it's more likely than not.
Might be one right now. Chad Frankenfield cuts to the middle, 3 wide on Gerald Campbell. Unfortunately for Chad, Josh Robin cut to the top around him. And Campbell, Robin, they will clear by Chad. Jaden Racine is trying to come along as well. The battle really for the open drivers here is between 3 guys. Gerald Campbell second on the top, now second in the race as he has surged forward here of late. Jaden Racine in that green and black car, and Frank Fody in the number 41 black and red car, last in this pack. They're the only ones in this front pack with a chance to make it into the 500 in that transfer spot. So, Frank obviously playing it safe, trying to keep it clean on the bottom, and the other 2 up in that outside lane trying to work their way to the front.
Watching these drivers battle it out here, checking in on the YouTube chat. Quick question for those tuning in. here in the middle of duel number 1. What do the colors in the scoring pylon mean? Well, first off, thanks for tuning in. Blue, those are our charter drivers. Those are the guys that, no matter what happens tonight, they will be back with us next week, this time for the Home Place Brewing Company Daytona 500. Orange numbers, those are your open drivers. They are the ones fighting for those precious open spots. We know for sure the highest finishing orange driver will be locked in to next week's show. Second place out of those orange drivers will have to sweat it out, see how the second duel goes to see if they've done enough to make it into the race. And then for one race, we're 3 wide.
Nick Delicato is in the garbage chute, heading to the back. He has been leading this race for the last 10 or 15 laps, but now the 10 3-wide TV Shifty Sports Ford will head to the back of the field, and it's Jonathan Cutlip up front once again. Gerald Campbell had the lead for a little bit, one of those orange drivers that you talked about. And, you know, he's certainly got the speed. We saw it in the clash on Monday. Gerald Campbell could be a threat for this race win, not to mention the transfer spot here. And with just 2 guys, and I would say 2 rookie or fairly inexperienced drivers to go against for Gerald. Oh, they're going back on the back straightaway, Cutlip. Campbell's involved, but he might be okay.
No caution.
The caution is not out. Trey Holmes now wrecked.
Now we have a
Seamus
caution.
is involved.
Oh, man. Well, it's got to be really interesting to see, frankly, how we managed to wreck twice on the backstretch there. We'll take a look at the replay. There you see...
That's probably where the caution should have come out right there. Jonathan Cutlip tried to clear himself off the nose of Chris Wright and just barely not clear, and the 2 of them go into the outside wall. I think Cutlip keeps it, and he gets into the wall again. He might be okay, though, in the 5 car, but then Chris Wright gets spun off the front bumper of Gerald. And that damage that Gerald had, that happened after the contact, so a little bit of a network damage there for Gerald, and it might be pretty severe. Ryan Schuld got taken towards the apron, and that was not a caution flag.
No, but the next part was we'll have to get back towards the drivers who managed to crash a little further up here.
Mm-hmm. Jaden Racimus was the one you want to keep your eye on. I think Richie Hearn might have gotten involved in it.
Oh, that's a little bit of a crab walk there for Jaden Racimus. We'll see. All right.
Robin gets to the middle, but I think it's Trey Holmes and Fortner are going to make contact there. And then Trey and Racimus trying to go around Cutlip is what ends up bringing out the caution. Those 3 end up wadded up in the wall. It doesn't look like the damage is too severe on Trey's car. Racimus, as you mentioned, might be crab walking just a smidge. And that helps out Chris Wright, who was not going to get the caution right there. It helps out Gerald Campbell as well. Those guys are going to be able to come down pit road, check on the damage, and get their cars fixed and go back out there. It also helps the group of 5 that was way off the back. Jake Scarborough, Raymond Hanneman's going to come down pit road. Josh Personette was in that group as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those guys are able to bounce back from that incident. Frank Fody might be, as far as the open guys, I mean, now him and Jake Scarborough kind of got through that unscathed, that, just as quickly as we thought they were on the outside looking in. Now they're right back in the mix.
Jake Scarborough needed that caution, something fierce, and it looks like Nick Delicato's car is still pretty clean, so Shifty Esports can probably gear up and work Jake Scarborough towards getting into the 500, and they'll have to contend with Frank Fody. But Frank doesn't have any teammates anymore, right? Frank is, as Jonathan Cutlip's going to get the tally for that one, clearing up high across Chris Wright's nose there. Frank doesn't have any teammates anymore, right? Ryan Gavel involved in that very first big wreck that we saw, and now Frank's going to have to find his way in. But I mean, remember what happened last year? Frank was able to make it into the 500, I think based on some guys winding up leaving, but he very nearly raced his way in, and he played it safe on the bottom of the racetrack and almost got in. I think Nick Massey nipped him at the line last year, so I think Frank's got a very good shot, but he's really going to have to get aggressive, and that hasn't really been his style of racing tonight. He's kind of, been one of the guys that just kind of rides the waves of momentum through the field.
Looking at some of the cars on pit road, obviously Ryan Gable done 16 laps down. But some of those other cars, if they're able to get back out, nobody's lost a lap yet, I don't believe. But obviously a pace car coming by this time. And it looks like we may be getting the one to green here. Yes, indeed. So cars will form up too wide here, and we'll see if everybody was able to make it out in time to stay on the lead lap. I believe so. I just need to try and find Johnny Thomas here. Indeed, he is on the apron. So looks like all of our guys who are still on track remain on the lead lap. Certainly some of those cars much worse for wear. They're gonna have a hard time keeping up with this pack when we go back green, but as long as you're on the lead lap, it's like the old poker saying, right? As long as you've got a chip in a chair, you've still got a chance at this deal.
You absolutely do, and I believe the race winner of this is going to get some bonus points towards the season. You guys might need to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe the race winner picks up a 10 bonus points, second place gets 9, etc. on the way down.
Indeed. If it's like past seasons, and I'll admit I did not fact check that before tonight's race, but that has been the case in this event in the past, much like in real life. So a few points on the line to get your season underway here in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series.
Let's re-rack it here before we restart. Josh Robin of Mountain Man Motorsports this season is the race leader. Justin Fortner and Chad Frankenfield, teammates over at Little Eagle Racing, run 2nd and 3rd. Michael Hosak is sitting in 4th. David Tooker 5th. Frank Fode will be 6th, with Nick and Delicato 7th. 8th is going to be the pole sitter for the 500, Ethan Burrell. 9th is Jake Scarborough, the second of those open cars, and Richie Hearn will be running in 10th when we get this restart here with, looks like about 12 laps to go when we hit the start-finish line.
Getting ready to get back underway. Pace car will pull off. Getting ready for the restart zone. You see the view from the flag stand. Green flag is out. We are back underway. Josh Robin, Justin Fortner leading the field to turn number 1 as we get back underway. You can see Chad Frankenfield in that 15 car giving an almighty push to the 8 of Josh Robin. Getting that 8 car out front. Sorry, teammate. Gotta go.
Justin Fortner, Chad blocks Tooker here. I was just going to mention the way the restart went on the outside. Doesn't matter. Here comes David Tooker down to the bottom of the racetrack. Josh Robin up top with Chad Frankenfield, and Jake Scarborough pulls to the back bumper of David Tooker. He and Nick and Delicato got separated, and Delicato's that 10 car up on the top of the racetrack. Scarborough, his teammate, down low, but Scarborough, Josh Robin got turned by Chad.
How on?
No caution.
No caution. Robin spins. Oh my. Chad to the race lead after spinning. Robin coming out of turn 3. Nick and Delicato up to 2nd. Fortner to 3rd. Hosak to 4th. And Frank Fode into 5th and into the lead of the open cars.
And behind that, I think they're just in range. But from Trey Holmes on back, they need to get lined up, get their act together, get caught back up. They obviously checked up for that incident. I think they're going to be all right, but there was a little bit of a sketchy moment for those guys. And now they're trying to get around. I believe that's Richie Hearn.
Yep, Richie changed lanes right when they were going around him too. Cutlip jumps in front of Rubilis. Rubilis is going to have to bail out of the gas. That'll give another big run to Trey Holmes and Ethan Burrell. Looks like everybody from Gerald Campbell on forward, maybe Richie Hearn on forward, is caught to the pack. It might be the guys behind, including Hanneman, Racimus, Ryan Schold, that are going to be struggling to stay with this group, but they are 3 wide up here. Trey Holmes, Ethan Burrell working through the middle towards the front of the field.
Definitely a head of steam in that middle lane.
Not contact. There's Story. And Rubilis loses his front bumper. No debris cautions here on iRacing.
How on earth they were able to keep those 2 cars straight? Obviously hit enough to trigger that front bumper to go flying away like something out of a terrible spy movie for Mark Rubilis, but still keeps the car pointed in the right direction. and we stay green. And now you see Trey Holmes jumping to the bottom, Ethan Burrell in tow. They're going to try and get this bottom lane some push to get caught back up to Chad Frankenfield and the rest of these guys on the top side.
37 car has shown to be a massive pusher in this race. He has been able to work from the back to the front for the third time in this race here as Trey Holmes, race leader, Ethan Burrell now to second, and David Tooker. They're trying to bring Tooker along with them, but they're not going to be able to get it done. Burrell and Holmes to the top of the racetrack in front of Chad Frankenfield, and after watching what happened with Josh Robin, I don't know if I would want to be up in front of Chad Frankenfield. And that's exactly what Ethan Burrell sees. He also sees his teammate down on the bottom of the racetrack, and he jumps down in front of David Tooker. Those Pro Edge Toyotas now 1-2 on the bottom of the racetrack.
Getting down to crunch time here, down to 8 laps to go. You see that top line dancing around a little bit, and now that was David Tooker that blinked out ever so briefly on the bottom side. Not what you want to see. It's no fun anywhere, but especially at these super speedway tracks when you're trying to form that push. You can't push a car you cannot see. Definitely not what that bottom lane needs, and now you see how that paid off as Trey Holmes drops in front of him on the low side.
Nick and Delicato really giving the push to Chad Frankenfield right now. The Fords working well up top. It was Toyotas on the bottom. Now Holmes in the Chevrolet down to the bottom. Here comes Indelicato in front of Trey Holmes. I don't think he got down all the way in front, but he will side draft that 15 car, slow down Chad Frankenfield, and then jump in front of Trey Holmes and take that bump. And Indelicato rolls the 10 Shift Esports car to the front of the field.
But that also puts the Little Eagle teammates of Chad Frankenfield and Justin Fortner nose to tail on the top. They're going to have to get synced back up. It's going to take a little bit of time, but don't be surprised to see that outside line roar back up. But right now, a huge head of steam for that bottom lane.
So what I saw was when Nick and Delicato went to pass Chad Frankenfield, he came up and side drafted that 15 car. When he did that, it bottled up that outside lane so badly that they are now like almost a half second behind. It slowed up Fortner, it slowed up Frank Fody, Gerald Campbell and Jake Scarborough are able to get up here into the top 7. So it changed the complexion of this race just by that one move by Nick and Delicato, who's now leading. He's got a single file line behind him. There's not nearly as much momentum to be able to pull up forward because we have so little cars in this pack, and it's very spread out right now. It's going to be difficult for these guys to build a run if these guys up front stay single file.
Man, you talk about that. I've been watching kind of Chad Frankenfield, Justin Fortner. There were 2 or 3 times where Chad tried to jump to the bottom, but Justin couldn't go with him. They've gone all the way to the back of this pack, those 2 cars, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm starting to wonder, now he's starting to suck back up. I was starting to wonder if maybe Chad had some damage from all of that.
Maybe. Gerald Campbell and Jonathan Cutliff have linked up. And Chris Wright's in there as well. That's a group that I think can definitely make a run here. But Wright jumps to the outside of Gerald Campbell. That is the battle right now for that transfer spot. Jake Scarborough in the red and black 52 car with 5 laps to go. He's got the transfer spot. Gerald Campbell, red and silver car, he wants it. Frank Fody, black and red car, he wants it too. Those are really the only 3 with a chance here at this point to transfer into the 500 next week. There's 14 cars in this lead pack as they lap by Johnny Thomas on the bottom of the racetrack. Nick and Delicato leading, 5 laps to go.
5 laps to go in the first duel this evening for next week's Home Place Brewing Company Daytona 500. And there you see the battle up front. Nick and Delicato in that light blue number 10 on the bottom. Ethan Burrell into 37, leading the high side. David Tooker, huge push to that 37 car. They're going to get out front by a sizable margin. Will they choose to drop to the bottom? Will they stay up high? Chris Wright able to draw back up to them as they head out turn 2.
Not forget, Chris Wright and David Tooker had a disagreement the last time we raced at Daytona with how to make passes on these super speedways, wound up resulting in further extracurricular shenanigans. Now Chris Wright and David Tooker have worked things out. They're racing 2nd and 3rd right here in the dual race, but I wouldn't expect for them to be working together when it comes to the last lap as we come down towards 3 to go with Ethan Burrell out front.
Man, I just can't help but notice Chad Frankenfield had worked his way up to about 6, then jumped to the bottom first chance he got, and now that bottom lane is going backwards. His teammate Justin Fortner didn't go with him. He's right there in the 5th spot.
Yep, Frank Fody took the lead over of that open charter spot, and Frank Fody right in front of Gerald Campbell, so that's the battle. for sixth and seventh right there on the top side. But Fortner now jumps down to the bottom in front of Chad Frankenfield. Those little Eagle Forts will start to surge forward.
And Chris Wright jumps in front of them. He's got to try to ride that wave to the front, as now we're coming to the line for 2 laps to go. Saw a car off in the distance, but right now 2 laps to go for these guys in the first duel.
When does Gerald make a move on Frank Fody? That's the battle for the transfer spot. Jake Scarborough's last car on the bottom, nowhere to go. If Personette gets to the inside of Campbell, that might end it for Gerald. Gerald's now stuck to the high side. Here comes Personette and Cutlip to the bottom. They'll go to the middle on Frank Fody as well, and it pins Gerald up top 3 wide.
Man, that's a tough spot for both of those open cars to be in, but it looks like they might just be able to fight their way out of it. But right now, Gerald Campbell still has his hands full. Frank Fody's a little bit in the clear, but Gerald Campbell...
Comes Gerald.
Now he's got the run.
To the top.
Oh, this is Days of Thunder stuff right here.
Gerald Campbell makes a big move, 3 wide. Fody now stuck in the middle of the racetrack. He's in the sucker hole. Scarborough's trapped on the bottom. White flag is out. Ethan Burrell still leads.
Ethan Burrell out front. David Tooker in second. Keeping an eye on this battle for the open spot. Gerald Campbell sitting pretty at the moment. But here comes Michael Hosek to the bottom. Somebody's in the wall.
Trey Holmes in the wall. He got up outside. Gerald now gets bumped by Hosek. Here comes Frank Fody on the outside.
Fody on the outside. They nearly make contact. Campbell all out of shape. He's dropped all the way to the rear. Frank Fody is in the spot right now to claim that open position up front. Here comes Trey Holmes. He's got Nick Indelicato in tow. Can they get up to Ethan Burrell? He's got to take a big run. Oh, there's a slow car in the way. I think it's got to be Ethan Burrell. Here comes Tooker.
Tooker at the line. It'll be Ethan Burrell. Wins the duel. Frank Fody makes it into the Daytona 500.
Oh my goodness.
What a finish.
It all happened on the last lap. But in the end, Ethan Burrell wins Daytona Duel number 1. David Tooker second. And most importantly for those open drivers, Frank Fody, we talked about the heartbreak 1 season ago. No heartbreak this time. He will be racing in the Daytona 500.
He'll be racing in based on 100% based on merit. What a drive by Frank Fody. Got to the outside. You know, Gerald got by him, but Frank stayed in it, and Gerald ended up getting shuffled out by Trey Holmes. And when that happened, Frank took advantage, stayed in line, and got to the line first of those open drivers. That is an awesome finish for Frank Fody. That is just, it's a veteran job and a veteran move by a guy who does not have that much experience in these cars and at this racetrack. And that's just awesome for Frank. I feel really good for him. How about Ethan Burrell? Pole, dual win. He will be tied for the points lead going into next week as well. What a great start for a guy who is desperate to capture his first Cup Series championship.
There you see Ethan Burrell burning it down on the front stretch here. Hopefully we'll get a chance to maybe hear from him before we start our second duel of the evening. But right now, he's got a little smoke show to put on.
Absolutely. You know, it's the second time in 2 races here in this next-gen car that we've had a Pro Edge 1-2 finish. I don't think Pro Edge has enough drivers in Duel 2 to get that 1-2 finish, but you know, we've seen it already where Tate Lytle and Matthew Weeks were in the clash on Monday. Ethan Burrell and David Tooker working down in this race, and I have to say, I think those two...
he beached it.
He did. The diffuser stuck on the track.
Oh no, Ethan, buddy.
Well, I'm sure we'll ask him when he gets in here, but I think they learned from that duel race. David Tooker made that move really late. Made it maybe a little too late. Wound up finishing second by 1/100th of a second. It's not the closest finish we've had so far in this Speed Weeks, but it's certainly a very close one here for duel number 1.
There you look at some of the results from that duel. Did not see anybody jumping into the waiting room just yet. But
we'll get there.
I'm sure they will. And of course, man, it's a beautiful sight. I gotta be honest, Dave, seeing those new schedules for the 2024 B season on the left side here of our interview screen. And let's take a moment also. Whiplash sim cams, if you've been enjoying some of the camera angles tonight, They've come on board for the 2024 B season here in Elite. So big shout out to those guys. I do see Ethan Burrell in the waiting room now.
Yeah, it's time to grab him. Again, well, long time no see there, pole sitter. You also managed to capture yourself a little duel win. Ethan, take us through your night, man. It looked like you just were really in control, kind of from the get-go. Whether you were at the back or not, you always seemed to find your way to the front.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on this speed weeks, man. It's kind of making me nervous for the big show next week, having all this success now. But dude, I'll take it. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of teammates in the race. Shout out David Tooker, man. He shoved me out there and gave us a chance to win it. And I'm glad he made his move just a little bit too late, because he definitely could have had me there. But shout out everybody. That was fun, man. Learned a lot of stuff for the 500. The side draft's crazy. The car heats up and you have a hard time cooling it back down. But I felt good. The handling was solid, and yeah, I'm looking forward to to next week, man.
You talked about the handling. I know there have been times under this with this next gen car where the handling has been a handful of times at these super speedways, but it seems like even with contact, even with bump drafts, even with some of the incidental side to side contact, it seems like you've got a pretty stable platform this season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember, I don't know if it was last season or the season before, but you know, people don't really think about it at Daytona, but sometimes the handling can really affect you. You get really light with the steering coming up out of the corner, but it seems nice and planted. Very, very good in the aero. So yeah, I mean, the track's probably going to be much hotter in the 500 next week, but it seems like we got a good base to work with. So I mean, you saw what, like the 5, dude, he was chopping all over the place and didn't seem out of shape there for most of those. So it's gonna be good, man. It's gonna be fun. There's gonna be a lot of action all these this next week and a half for sure.
All right, Ethan. Well, I think you're also the points leader too. So
oh yeah, I forgot about that. I got a playoff point too.
I think that's a pretty big a start to your pursuit of championship number 2. So, or championship number 1 rather. So you know, what are you got your eyes set on that, or are you purely focused on winning that Daytona 500 next week?
It's hard not to get ahead of myself thinking. I mean, you know, I know I can be relevant come playoff time. You know, I'm pretty confident there, but you know, still have to win a race. I mean, there's no guarantees. But yeah, I mean, right now it's all focused on the 500 and just trying to start the season with some good points. Because I mean, last year I had a horrible result in the 500 and did great the rest of the season, but I was always that bad result in the 500 lurked the whole season trying to catch Fody and Weeks. I mean, those guys, they had good finishes in the 500 and then they weren't going to finish bad anywhere else. So go get some points, try to win the big thing, and you know, we'll look on to the future a little later on.
All right, well, congratulations on your duel number 1 win, and congratulations on the pole win, and hopefully your success continues next week there, Ethan. Go have a beer for us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Shout out Betty for watching, too.
That was duel number 1 winner, Ethan Burrell.
You know, I like being in the booth, Dave, and being able to share my experience racing in these events, whether it be in Elite or other leagues. You know, an experience I can't share. Ever winning, leading. I've won once, but leading the points, no idea what that's like. So Ethan Burrell's got that on me, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I led the points twice. I think in my sim racing league career, and I think I've been doing this stuff for like 6 years at this point. So, you know, it's certainly one of those feelings where you can. Oh, you know, he's surprised about it. He didn't even know that there were points on the line, and he's out here trying to win the race and stuff. But, you know, that's a guy that you are definitely penciling in as a favorite for next week's race. You're penciling him in as a favorite for the championship. You know, he's a runner-up a couple of seasons in a row, and he's just seemed to do. I'm excited to see what the season has for Ethan Burrell. I think that the confidence is all there, especially the way he finished last season, and the way he started this season. That guy is driving with all the confidence in the world, and I think that's going to translate to some really good results here early in 2024 B.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all night, how tough the Belly Up Sports Cup Series is, how demanding this event is. Gerald Campbell's a two-time champion here in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. He's on the outside looking in next week.
Yep. That's tough, and Gerald was in position too, but the draft I think kind of got him. It's tough to make those blocks, and I think he kept himself in the hunt by not wadding himself and Trey Holmes into the wall, going down the back straightaway on the final lap there. But he'll probably look back and wonder what was or what could have been there, because he had made the move on Frank Fodi and he was firmly in position to transition into the Daytona 500 next week.
Jake Scarborough, kind of in the awkward bubble spot, 12th place finish. He will have to see how the open drivers fare in the second duel to see if he will be racing next week. And it's worth noting, this hasn't been the case the last couple of seasons, I don't believe, Dave, but technically speaking, stranger things have happened. It is the real world compared to fake race cars. These guys who aren't locked in could potentially get in as alternates if, for whatever reason, somebody has to drop out between now and next week. Gerald Campbell, I'm sure the phone line will be open. Hopefully, he's not going to do anything, like pay somebody off for a spot or anything like that. I don't think he would do that. But certainly, never say never for a guy like Gerald Campbell or Raymond Hanneman. They'll be on the alternate list if we do have somebody drop out. But as it stands right now, it is Frank Fodi making the show, Jake Scarborough on the bubble.
Yeah, let's take a short break here, and we'll get back in with duel number 2 here, and finish off our rather long opening Speed Weeks night, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes. Welcome back, race fans, to Daytona International Speedway for Duel number 2 for the Home Place Beer Daytona 500. This will be the Belly Up Cup Sports Series, and we did receive word here that Dave Huckleberry was muted during Duel 1, so we're going to have Dave do our sponsor reads before the session gets all loaded up and ready to go. So take it away, Huck.
And so our premier sponsors is for this year, Blue Egg Marketing. Rev up your business with Blue Egg, your marketing pit crew. Turbocharge your lead generation with experienced drivers that can navigate the competitive track to connecting your customers. With Blue Egg, you're always in the pole position, leading your brand toward victory lane. Don't spin your wheels. Accelerate success with Blue Egg, fueling small businesses to win big. Worldwide Technology Raceway. Worldwide Technology Raceway is a motorsport racing facility in Madison, Illinois, just east of St. Louis, Missouri. It features a 1.25-mile oval that hosts the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and the NTT IndyCar Series. They have a 2-mile infield road course used by Speed Tour Trans Am, SCCA, and the Porsche Club of America. There's a quarter-mile NHRA sanctioned drag strip that hosts the annual NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series Midwest Nationals event. Finally, the Kartplex, a state-of-the-art karting facility. And new to our premier sponsor for this season is 4D Racewear, makers of the ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 4D sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can and still provide all the comfort needed for those double and triple stints. Visit 4dracewear.com and check out the original racing gloves for you. Those are our sponsors for tonight, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave, and thank you to the sponsors who sponsor our series here. And we will get to rolling here right now for Duel number 2. Duel 1, very wild. Saw Ethan Burrell win from the pole. Tyler Fode qualified second. He will be running second to the green flag next week in the Daytona 500. He'll be alongside Corey Abbott. Michael Goodman and Connor Thompson will roll from the second row. Ethan Stanley and Seth Rawls roll from the third row. Justin Vandermarl and Tate Lytle roll from row number 4. Jeff Green, the 2000 Busch Series champ, and Justin Wadsworth roll from row number 5. Jordan Owens and Leighton Norgard will roll from row number 6.
The 7th row, Nick Massey starting 13th. Zachary Rogers starting in the 14th position. Jesse Racimus rolls off 15th. Gavin Hibbs will start 16th. Mitch Javier, Darren Staff, a couple of yellow stripes on those cars. They'll line up 17th and 18th. Brent Jones 19th. Chris Stouffer rounding out the top 20. Carlos Acosta starting 21st. Kyle Hanshaw 22nd. Joshua Clark will be 23rd. Shotgun on the field. You heard in Duel 1, Andrew Rucker did not quite answer the call. He's able to join in at the tail of the field here for Duel number 2.
All right, quick picks. Zach, go first once again.
Yeah, because it went so well for me last time.
He finished 7th. He made it in the 500.
He made the show. You're right. You know what? Give me Jeff Green.
Jeff Green. For this, I'll take Carlos Acosta. Let's see if old 02 can get in there.
I'll take Tate Lytle.
Wow, go all the way out on that limb, buddy.
Hey, why not?
Pace car is headed to pit road. We will be racing in Duel number 2 once again here, and Tyler Fode, Corey Abbott lead us down to the green flag. Loud pedals active. We are racing at Daytona for the second time and final time this evening.
Time to find out who else will be in the field for next week's Home Place Brewing Daytona 500. Right now, Tyler Fode jumping out front. Who will be behind him? Well, it's Michael Goodman, second in line on that inside lane.
We got to talk to Michael Goodman a good bit during qualifying, and as Ethan Stanley and Justin Vandermarl and Jeff Green all jump to the outside and leave Goody hanging, Goody was real excited about that qualifying run, and he obviously starts up front, but he's getting hung out to dry pretty quickly here.
Indeed, already seeing those moves, all these drivers have just been sitting and waiting in anticipation since qualifying earlier this evening. They just had to watch that first duel just like you and I and everybody watching on the Elite Racing Network. Now they finally get to mash the loud pedal with all the lessons they learned from that first race. And already you're seeing plenty of guys moving around trying to replicate those aggressive maneuvers. Right now, Connor Thompson leading that bottom lane in car 60.
Connor Thompson running the ARCA series over there for Shift Esports, and he and I have already had some run-ins in that series, but he's doing a pretty good job. He's earned himself an opportunity to run for this Daytona 500, and he qualified it really, really well. He started 4th in this race, and you saw the guy right there in that white and black number 2 car. That's Jeff Green. That's the 2000 Busch Series champ. He is leading the open cars at this moment, and that's maybe your favorite of the open cars in this race. Jeff is very skilled at these plate tracks, obviously having done it in real life a good bit, and he's got the pedigree of having run with this group for a really long time, and he knows what everybody can do out here. He's a talented racer.
You say he's done it in the real world. Let's not forget, not only, of course, we always mention that 2000 Busch Series championship, Jeff Green started on the pole for the Daytona 500 one time, like in real life, the real one.
The real one. Yeah, that was one of the. That was a race young D West knew all about. So it's always cool, and we raced against Jeff Green. Won the ARCA race last night. This race I participated in, and it's cool to run with Jeff Green every time, man. He's ticked me off more than once. I can tell you that. That guy's aggressive. He knows what he's doing out there, but it's always fun to run with Jeff Green, no matter what, even if he's over aggressive in some points. And it's always good to have him around, and we're getting to pay attention to him here once again tonight as Justin Vandermarl and Jordan Owens jump to the bottom of the racetrack. Not team cars. Mountain Man Motorsports for Owens, Fueled Up Racing for Vandermarl, but Vandermarl takes over the race lead here in duel number 2.
I can already tell you, this is going to be a struggle for me, David. Justin Vandermarl, we saw how much time Trey Holmes spent up front, especially early on in that first duel. It will be a struggle for me not to also call Justin Vandermarl Trey Holmes in that 80. Similar font, similar look on those cars, but Justin Vandermarl definitely picking up where Trey left off. He's leading the way right now in duel number 2.
He sure is, and Trey finished 3rd in duel number 1 for Fueled Up Racing, so I expect Vandermarl to work to keep that up, those results up for duel number 2 here. We see Tate Lytle in the middle of the racetrack there in that 56 car. He is trying to work his way forward after somewhat of a lackluster starting spot. He's got Kyle Hanshaw tucked in behind right now, and now Lytle abandons that middle lane, goes up to the top, but we just saw his Pro Edge teammates go 1-2 in duel number 1. Tate kind of by himself. He's got Josh Clark here to help out. Vandermarl with Fueled Up Racing ought to probably work with Tate Lytle a little bit, but overall, I think that Tate's going to be kind of working upstream a little bit as the 3 Lake Norman cars that are in this race are nose to tail on the outside right behind Vandermarl.
You talk about those teammates. How about the Abbott Motorsports cars on the bottom? Corey Abbott, a Leighton Norgard. Right now, they've got a head of steam. You can't call Corey Abbott Kachow anymore, but you might be able to call him the leader of this race soon.
Yeah, I can maybe pull some of Terry Labonte's nicknames. He was Iron Man, he was Iceman, Texas Terry. And we'll workshop it depending on how what Corey does in that Terry Labonte throwback car. Definitely cool to see the Terry Labonte throwback car racing side by side with the Mark Martin throwback car that Ethan Stanley runs in that 91.
Well, you know how I feel about Mark Martin, so obviously that gets flying colors, A+ grade in my book. But right now, like you mentioned, that Terry Labonte throwback, we talked to Corey about that after qualifying or during qualifying, and right now he's trying to get that to the front right, but Justin Vandermarl and Tyler Fode just have a little bit more muscle on that high side right now.
And talked to Tyler Fode after the last race that we ran in this series, and he had some choice words for Justin Vandermarl. Felt like he got raced a little bit too much, maybe a little bit too he got some door slams there in that championship race when he was on fresh tires working his way towards the front. And, I think that bad blood has kind of cooled as time has gone on. And Fody obviously working with Van der Marel right now, letting Van der Marel lead the way on that outside line. He's got those Lake Norman cars lined up behind, and one of those Lake Norman cars that we mentioned during qualifying, didn't really get to talk about it too much, but Rookie of the Year last year, Justin Wadsworth, has joined this group and working well with Ethan Stanley and Tyler Fody as Van der Marel cuts to the bottom to cut off Zach Rogers in the one car. Kind of first time we've seen him really in this Cup Series.
Yeah, Zach Rogers and Tate Lytle had jumped to the bottom there and looked like they had a nice little head of steam going. Justin Van der Marel not interested in seeing them proceed to the front. He'll jump to the bottom. And now that puts Tyler Fody leading that top side with Ethan Stanley behind him.
And then Wadsworth, obviously, who, making that switch over to Lake Norman Motorsports, and then he's got Ranger Rucker in that outside lane as well. The outside kind of winding up a little bit down this back straightaway and give Tyler Fody the race lead into turn 3. I'm excited to see what Wadsworth can do. He'll get some more, team support over at Lake Norman. Those guys always good teammates. They work together very well, and that's the kind of thing that I think Wadsworth was maybe lacking a little bit last year. We saw him, maybe not get into it, but he was just kind of. He was definitely by himself a little bit in terms of super speedways and some of those other tracks where having a team around him may propel him to some even better finishes than we saw in his Rookie of the Year campaign. Did Van der Marel just lag out, or was that
Fody's gone?
Fody's gone. He's back, it looks like, but that will kill the outside lane momentum. And something Zach mentioned in the first duel, as simple as a blip on the internet can throw your race off.
Yeah, you saw when the camera just kind of stopped following race cars there briefly. I was having the same issue on my end personally because we were both focused on that 40 car of Tyler Fody. And it's hard for the cameras to follow a car that is not on the track, just like Ethan Stanley couldn't push him while he was not visible on the racetrack. Fortunately, Tyler Fody back with us, but definitely stalled out that top side for a little bit. Justin Van der Marel getting back out front. And then Zach Rogers, I keep making the Johnny Benson references. Think about that 2000 Daytona 500. You see that plain white car. Maybe he'll put together a strong finish tonight and convince somebody to jump aboard that one car between now and next week.
Yeah, I think that's definitely got to be on the cards for Zach Rogers. I've run with Zach for a number of years in various series, and he's always been a really respectful driver. And if Zach makes the 500 next week, that's definitely someone I recommend, getting a sponsor on the car. He'll put it at the front of the field just like he is right now. Zach's a really capable driver, and it's obvious because Tate Lytle is currently, working with him, and Tate's one of the fastest drivers in this league.
Now we see Ethan Stanley. He dropped down to the bottom. He's going to try to get out front here with Justin Van der Marel in tow. Looks like that bottom lane's just got a little bit more muscle at the moment.
Yeah, once the outside lane takes a few laps to really heat up, but now Tate Lytle is clear of the outside lane, and it's starting to back up a little bit. Fody's got to have the push from Wadsworth, and it looks like it's gonna get there, but they're gonna need somebody to jump up in front of Tyler Fody in order to pull things forward. Well, there you go. Rogers already does have a sponsor, and the team owner, that's Mountain Man Motorsports over there for Zach Rogers. So that is Race Control Robert Hill, and I do want to shout Robert out. He's run Race Control for both of these dual races. He's also run Race Control for qualifying. You had to clear black flags every time a car went on the racetrack during qualifying. So Robert's had a busy night, but he's done a great job.
I'll let you give all the compliments to Robert. I'll bust his chops a little bit. If he were American instead of Canadian, maybe he could have gotten that wrap done in time. But, everything just moved a little bit slower up there.
Now it is Olympics time, so as Tate Lytle jumps in front of Tyler Fody, and it ends up stacking up the field a good bit. Rucker almost got spun out by Josh Clark. Everybody keeps it straight. That was almost a big wreck, and it is Olympics time, so the nationality or the nationalism there a little bit. You gotta the patriotism. You gotta get your pride in, and we gotta bash the Canadians anytime we can.
I have to get the shot in because I'll be honest, I don't know how much of the Olympics you've been able to watch, whether it be live or on the tape delay, but I basically spent all day yesterday watching the Women's 7 rugby, and Canada did get the upper hand in that one. I'll have to admit, but man, I was entertained.
Rugby's a great sport, and another great sport is auto racing here, and they don't have auto racing in the Olympics yet. I wonder if that'll come down the line a little bit, but the Canadian women's soccer flying over. Yeah, they did. They got penalized for flying the drones. I did forget about that.
Oh, who knew the Olympics could have Spygate? But if you flew a drone over the virtual Daytona International Speedway right now, you'd see some great racing here. Is we're 15 laps into the second duel of the evening for next week's Home Place Brew Company Daytona 500. You mentioned Andrew Rucker, and granted, that second lane admittedly has stalled out a little bit since you first mentioned it, but let's give a call to him, because again, he started shotgun on the field, and he's just outside the top 10 now.
Yeah, he's doing a good job, and Rucker's really, he's obviously got the charter. He's willing to go mix it up here and get into this field as Jordan Owens cuts to the outside and gets the push from Tate Lytle here in the center of the corner. We'll see if the outside lane finally works their way up towards the lead group here, but yeah, Rucker's going to be a factor. He's won a Daytona 500 a few years back, and I think he's got another one in him, but as is often the case with Andrew Rucker, the key is going to be staying out of trouble.
There you see Andrew Rucker in that 64 Sunny D car behind Justin Wadsworth. Oh, is
Jordan
that
Owens got
Owens?
the lead, and he is now in the garbage chute. Wadsworth to the bottom of the track. Tate Lytle has been blinking in and out since he got the race lead, and I think he's going to be good there. Looks like that 56 car is back in line, but Wadsworth got to the bottom, got in front of teammate Ethan Stanley, and just as we talk about him, Andrew Rucker's now up here in third.
I mean, just that quick, that's how your fortunes can change here at Daytona. You see Andrew Rucker really pushing is that Tyler Fode? Excuse me. Yeah, that's Fode out front. And off they go into turns 3 and 4. We'll see now, what will Andrew Rucker do? Will he stay up high if he gets clear? Well, no, right now that bottom lane's able to kind of draw even with him. Maybe he'll have a shot here if he wants to drop to the bottom. But he seems pretty content right now to hang out with Tyler Fode.
Yeah, once Tate Lytle and Jeff Green wind it up here on the bottom, which I think is coming soon, this inside line's gonna shoot forward. Tate and Green are two of the better drafters, I would say, in this series, and here as they come off of turn 2, they're going to have a big ol' head of steam down the back straightaway. Tate's really drafting well with Jeff Green. They're almost tandem drafting down the back. Green and Tate Lytle heading towards 3. They've gotten alongside Andrew Rucker. Let's see if they can clear Tyler Fode as well.
Oh, that was a big bump in the middle of the corner. You saw Jeff Green clip the apron, but he hangs on to it, and they really didn't lose a lot of momentum.
They really didn't, and now Rucker gives the push to Tyler Fode. They're even at the line. Jeff Green, I think, led that lap barely. Oh no, it was Tyler Fode, but just by a very, very small margin. Now Jeff Green leads them into turn number 1. He's clear of Tyler Fode if he wants to move to the top, but it looks like he's gonna go to the top.
You know, when we were talking to Ethan Burrell after his win in the first duel, I asked him about how stable these cars are compared to how they can be at times at Daytona. It's really, honestly, a season-by-season thing. You find out how much grip, how planted these cars are. I can tell you more seasons than not, what you saw with Tate Lytle and Jeff Green there in turn 3 and 4 is a 20-car wreck. Yep. But instead, Jeff Green still leading this race.
That's absolutely right. The stability of the cars is certainly putting on good racing, but it also is pretty clear right now that this group has definitely been a little less willing to make big moves. Andrew Rucker slices to the bottom here with Josh Clark in tow. They'll go for the race lead down the back straightaway. It'll allow Carlos Acosta to pull up to the back bumper of Tyler Fode into the top 5.
I'm sorry, did you say Carlos Acosta?
Carlos Acosta. That's that 02 3-wide TV car right there in that outside lane. And I love the way that thing looks. It's a little sparkly. Looks like they might have put a little wrap on there. I think that thing looks really good, and he's got it up here in the top 5. But all of a sudden, that bottom lane with Rucker, with Clark, with Lytle, they have cleared Jeff Green, and now Andrew Rucker is leading this duel race.
Worth noting here, 21 laps in, we've made it further now than we did in the first duel without a caution flag. We didn't get a good idea what the green flag strategy would be. We might find out here if we can keep it green. This has been a little bit tamer. We haven't seen as much of the 3-wide racing as we did in the first duel. I think a lot of people learned from the first duel. First and foremost, you don't want to get caught in that sucker hole. So you're seeing a lot of guys pretty content to keep it 2 wide, stay out of that middle groove. And I think a little bit tamer race than the first one thus far.
Yeah, we just aren't seeing those big moves, the big pushes, as Justin Wadsworth jumps to the outside to try and lead this outside line with his Lake Norman Motorsports teammate Ethan Stanley. They will draft forward here alongside Tate Lytle for third, all behind Andrew Rucker. It has been tamer, but it's not been perfectly calm. We saw the sideways push there between Lytle and Jeff Green, a few more near it misses in this race, but nowhere near as many. We saw Chris Wright like sideways out of turn 2 on like lap 15 in the Duel 1. I mean, it's just been a little bit tamer.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, granted, we're not to the halfway point yet, but guys are going to start pushing the envelope. They're going to have to start finding where the line is. I'm not saying they're going to take any ridiculous chances just yet, but they have to start finding where the edge of the envelope is at least. So we'll see what that looks like here if the pushes start getting a little harder, if they start getting a little more aggressive with the bump draft in the corners. Where exactly are they willing to test the limits here as we get closer to halfway?
Yeah, and they'll also think about pit stops. If we start to see guys, shifting to the bottom as Ethan Stanley's going to go to the bottom in front of Rucker. I think those Lake Norman Chevys want to lead each lane here, but Stanley's going to take the lead over from his teammate Justin Wadsworth. Yes, once we see guys start shuffling to the bottom, that's when we'll start thinking about pit stops. But I think these guys are going to have 30 to 35 laps in their tank in terms of fuel, depending on how you save and how many laps you lead. That'd be my best guess.
We know for sure they can go at least around 30 because that's what they did to end duel number 1. Oh, Wadsworth out of shape.
Oh, and he's going to get... Oh, they got Zach Rogers, Wadsworth around, Tate Lytle's involved. Caution's going to be out.
There's another car in the outside wall. Didn't quite make out who that was.
It's a fully black car. Other
Maybe
than
Connor
Wadsworth.
Thompson then?
It wasn't Connor Thompson. It wasn't Javier. Was it Vandermarl?
I think it was Chris Stouffer, actually, in the 47.
And Zach Rogers is going to be the one to take the biggest hit here. And yeah, Stouffer got into the back of Gavin Hibbs and then wound up in the fence. Might need to get another look at that. I want to say Wadsworth just a slightly bad push from Vandermarl on corner exit unsettled the 6 car, and that was all she wrote. This is already after, and yeah, Tate Lytle's going to have big damage on the right front of that 56 car, and there's Stouffer getting involved and getting into the fence in the 47.
Huge damage for the 1 car as well, Zach Rogers. He has the meatball flag. There's the contact that sent Justin Wadsworth out of shape. You're going to see the hit right there for Zach Rogers, and the steering is broken at that point. So hopefully that's all of it. Maybe it'll be a quick meatball, but he does have mandatory repairs on that number 1 car.
Yeah, and that's not good for Zach Rogers. One of the open cars, he's got to race his way in. Can we go back a little bit, Dave? Maybe even go on board with this is on board with Tate Lytle right into the back of Wadsworth, nowhere to go. I want to go on board with Wadsworth and see what he saw. Because once he got onto the apron, he kind of came right back up onto the racetrack. Sideways, he's already got the wheel turned to the right, and he turns it back to the left, and there's just not really anywhere to go for Wadsworth at that point. He's going to get hit by Tate Lytle.
Yeah, you could tell there was a point in that slide where he realized he wasn't going to save it, and he did the right thing, got out of the opposite lock, tried to keep it on the apron, but the car just would not cooperate with him. He was doing everything he could to not make that a multi-car incident. You have to give him credit for that, but ultimately the car just had a mind of its own after it crashed down onto the apron.
All the wheel movement was to the left once he got on the apron, and the car still drove back up on the racetrack. That is not... It was going back up in front of the pack was not Wadsworth's intent right there.
No, absolutely not. And certainly it's always something you're worried about in that situation. Even if you see anytime you're in that in the pack and you see the car on the apron, it doesn't matter how much faith you have in that driver's ability. You know there's a chance that car's going to come back. Unfortunately, in that case, it did. Tate Lytle nowhere to go really, other than to get collected when Justin Wadsworth's car washed back onto the banking.
Yep, and that caution right at halfway, that throws all pit strategy out the window. The one pit stop these drivers are going to need to make has now been made. Andrew Rucker will be the race leader. He and Josh Clark started tail end Charlie on the field. They are now 1-2 here in Gatorade Duel number 2.
And don't look now, David, but leader of the open cars right now, Carlos Acosta in the number 02.
Great. Now he's been jinxed. That's it. It's all over.
I didn't do it. I'm merely presenting the facts.
No, but a really good run so far for Carlos. He really was very comfortably up there in the top lane, and I imagine he'll probably employ the same strategy. That's kind of the strategy that we saw Frank Fodi take and run to presence in the Daytona 500. And Jeff Green right behind. Obviously, one thing we know is if the second place open car finishes ahead of 12th, they will be locked in, right? So Jake Scarborough finished 12th in Duel 1. So all the second place open car has to do is finish above 12th. We can roll back here. We're kind of rolling through the field. I want to note Darren's staff is in 11th before this restart in the 55 car. That's Carlos Acosta's teammate. Darren's going to be in position to maybe move forward here, and right in front of him is a guy we haven't talked about at all this year, but he was an open car last year, and Nick Massey. That's a guy that he's chartered in, but he raced his way in to the Daytona 500 last year in this very Duel too. So no noise from Nick Massey thus far tonight, but he's certainly one to watch, I think, as we come down to the end.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot still to play for here. It'll be 23 laps to go when we get back underway. You see the lights out on the iRacing pace car as the field makes its way down the backstretch. Andrew Rucker, Josh Clark will be the front row for this restart. It'll be interesting to see exactly who is able to work their way to the front once we get back underway here. Worth noting, Zach Rogers still with that meatball flag. Unfortunately, I was optimistic for him that maybe it was only some wheel damage. Does not appear to be the case. I think he's got some more significant issues. That's probably the end of his evening. We see a tally being assigned to the 47 of Christopher for failure to reduce speed in a significant fashion as the incident was unfolding in front of him. Or as we tend to say in the sim racing community, ARCA braking.
Ace car is off. Don't think it's unwarranted, but that's why we let Robert Hill decide, as Andrew Rucker fires early in the restart zone, gets a very big jump on Josh Clark and Corey Abbott. And if we've seen anything from the way this car catches up and closes in on cars in front, Rucker might be a little bit of a sitting duck right here as he jumps in front of Josh Clark. Clark does check up to allow the 64 car to get in front of him, but that very well could have been a 3-wide move, and watch Rucker go to the back there from Josh Clark.
That will put Corey Abbott and Carlos Acosta 1-2 on the bottom lane with that move to the top. And right now, we'll see if they're able to build up a run with Ethan Stanley behind them. As it stands for now, though, Andrew Rucker's leading, but here comes that bottom lane.
Here he comes, Corey Abbott, and the Terry Labonte throwback, and Abbott will take the lead, and he'll get it at the line, and the 21 car was very quick in qualifying, and Corey Abbott able to lead that line. Carlos Acosta doing a good job pushing in that 02 car, and Ethan Stanley in that line as well. Here comes Nick Massey forward, the bottom line, surging ahead. Here in turn number 1, Rucker, Clark trying to regroup up top. Here goes Acosta, up top for the lead.
He talked about, he said he was going to have to get aggressive, face his fears. Carlos Acosta definitely throwing it all on the line, jumps to the high side in front of Andrew Rucker. He's got to try to get out front here in duel number 2.
Well, you can see, though, Rucker did not get to the back bumper of the 0-2 car and is still off of it. Ethan Stanley hooked up to the back bumper of Corey Abbott's number 21. Rucker in that outside lane trying to get back to Carlos Acosta, but it's not going to be enough. Abbott leads as we get to 20 to go.
21 to go here in the second duel of the evening. Corey Abbott, Ethan Stanley, you mentioned it, David. They are hooked up. They are getting just enough momentum on that bottom lane by working together. But, another thing you heard from Ethan Burrell in his interview after winning the first duel, these cars get hot fast. You have to wonder how much Ethan Stanley is withdrawing from the metaphorical bank account right now.
Yeah, you gotta be conscious of it, and you see how, I don't know if we have a good view of it, but Stanley's been peeking out on the bottom of the racetrack. That's how he's getting that air. Carlos Acosta's taking the outside lane to the race lead here in duel number 2, and now there are cars abandoning the bottom. That's Nick Massey jumping up to the outside lane behind Justin Vandermarl in front of Jeff Green. So Acosta has got that outside lane rolling with Rucker and Clark in tow, and it's starting to kind of take over the lead as Abbott starts to fall back.
Yeah, that outside lane behind Carlos Acosta is rolling at the moment. We'll see if... Well, now it's almost like the chute came out up there. Here comes Corey Abbott and Ethan Stanley to the front, and they've got Michael Goodman in tow.
They also have Darren Staff, the team car, to Carlos Acosta. Both of those RK Motorsports cars, orange numbers on your pylon, 02 and 55. We talked to both drivers during qualifying. Hey, what would you do if you were racing your teammate for that transfer spot? Luckily, they're both ahead of 12th place, and that's kind of the spot you need to be in order to guarantee that you make it into the Daytona 500. But now, Carlos Acosta drawing a bead on Darren Staff. If he can give a good bump to his teammate right here, they might be able to go to the lead.
And don't look now, David, but you mentioned a potential dark horse next week. Look who has creeped his way up to 4th in that bottom lane.
Old Brent Jones, and I'll say it now, I'll say it again, man. If you're picking an underdog for next week to root for, if you're picking an underdog next week to perform well, Brent Jones in those long-distance Daytona races, that is a driver that can and will perform well. And if not, it's Daytona, but he just tends to find his way to the front late in these races, and we're past halfway. Here he is in 4th in the duel race.
Quick little housekeeping note. You saw the update from Race Control. Zach Rogers officially out of the race. 6-lap rule here in Elite at the super speedways. Once you fall more than 6 laps astray of the front runners, you are required to retire from the race for the evening. Of course, in Zach Rogers' case, he has not even made it back on track. He was probably done regardless, but legally speaking, he is done for the night.
And that is one of the open cars now down for Darren Staff and Carlos Acosta to be battling. And really, those two nose to tail, and they can very safely work together here. We talked about the potential pitfalls of having to work together in a race where you might only take one car, but if those two can finish above 12th, they can work together all the way to the line. It doesn't matter whether they're in front of each other as long as they're above 12th, and I think they would have had to know that going into this race.
Definitely, it would have been a huge relief because, we talked about with Darren Staff, he put it as the best we can do is 1-2. Well, the good news is by being in the second duel, they know they don't have to do that. Certainly, that would be awesome. It would give them 4th and 6th place next week to start the Daytona 500. But to make the show...
in the wall, Jeff Green, Mitch Havier, Seth Rawls, and more into the wall. Gavin Hibbs is in it. Big crash here in the back of the field. That takes out a number of additional open cars. Jeff Green is not going to race in next week's Daytona 500. What a shame. And he's rolling. He might be... We'll see. The damaged cars of Tate Lytle and Christopher are still in the mix. That was a pretty big hit for Jeff Green.
Dave, Jeff Green, meatball flag. Mitch Havier, meatball flag. Connor Thompson, meatball flag. We're seeing the replay here.
Oh,
there's
Jordan Owens.
Jordan Owens also getting a piece of it. There you see Gavin Hibbs. There's the impact that collected Connor Thompson. I believe that was Mitch Havier with the yellow numbers. I'm not 100% certain.
I'm looking through. If they all got meatball flags,
I'm not. Again, it might be wheel damage. We might get surprised here, but I think that might be the best thing RK Racing's seen tonight.
yeah, that might be all of the open drivers all in one wreck right there. Other than our two RK guys that we were talking about there, we're going to need to get an onboard, Dave, with Justin Wadsworth. I have no earthly idea how he missed this wreck.
Well, first off, he's driving the 6 car, so that's an additional like 15 skill points right there on the skill tree. But we'll go on board with Justin Wadsworth, see what happened. There's the puff of smoke. On the brakes, you can see the RPMs dropping.
Oh my
He just
goodness.
does a really good job of getting it woed up, and that's not easy in these next gen cars at times, especially at these high speeds. The brake's not as responsive as you would expect at times, but man, he got that thing woed up in plenty of time to avoid piling into that wreck, and that keeps his night in front of him.
Robert's going to give the tally to Jeff Green, so Mitch Javier not responsible for that contact, but I think both of those guys would like to have that one back. Responsibility regardless, because neither one of them is really probably going to have an opportunity to win this or to get into this Daytona 500. And yeah, it looks like Mitch was just leaving a little space off. And I've raced with Mitch a good bit. He's definitely green, pun intended, at this sim racing stuff, and you just got to hold it a little bit closer when you're in the pack like that. And if you don't do that, then you give the opportunity for someone to jump in front of you, and obviously Jeff jumped in front maybe just a little bit too late, and that ends up causing this big melee.
So I am seeing, let me see here, I'm gonna double check this.
I think all our orange numbers are very
all
very
four
down
in the
the
pit.
order.
It's
now
Jeff Green is still on pit road, but I do not see the meatball flag for him anymore. He might be able, I'm not sure. It depends on what the damage is. Right now, obviously, he's still getting repaired, but I do not see a meatball flag anymore.
The very important thing for Carlos and Darren right now is that they need to stay above 12th. They can finish as far back as 11th in this race and make the Daytona 500. But if they finish 12th, we start to question. I think the tiebreaker stuff gets thrown into effect, and if you finish after 12th, Jake Scarborough will race in the Daytona 500.
Jeff Green's rolling.
All right. Well, Jeff will still have a chance because we're almost certainly not done wrecking.
Oh, you might be right about that.
And that makes it all the more dangerous for Carlos and for Darren up here at the front. They have got to stay clean. They've got to just stay in line, find a way to avoid any potential carnage here in the final 14 laps. Up front, Corey Abbott, he and Ethan Stanley were working very well together. They were leading the line and kind of dominating there a little bit. Good to see Terry Labonte and Mark Martin working at the front of the field. Michael Goodman and Darren Staff will make up row 2. Good to see Goody running well as well after that really strong qualifying effort. Brent Jones and Carlos Acosta, row 3. Chris Stouffer in that damage. He'll restart in row 4 alongside Andrew Rucker. And then row 5 will be Josh Clark and Justin Vandermarl.
That will be how they line up to get back underway. You see them working down the backstretch here on the Whiplash sim cams for tonight's broadcast. Man, huge change with that accident, especially for those open drivers. But again, still lots of starting spots up for grabs, and Jeff Green not out of this thing. Got his work cut out for him. And again, I mean, you mentioned it, they only need to stay 11th, those two RK Motorsports cars, but we saw if you get caught in that middle lane, how quickly you can go from the front to the back of this lead pack. Well, I mean, the back of this lead pack, even if the severely damaged cars fall off, that's got to be something like 15th. That's right. What you absolutely cannot afford if you're one of those RK guys.
Exactly. And, we spent a lot of time on those guys, but those are the open drivers racing for a spot in the next week's Daytona 500. And we talked to both of them. We've gotten their thoughts on this race, and the way it's played out already has kind of been picturesque. If they couldn't have drawn it up any better here as we get ready to go back to green, Corey Abbott, the race leader, he'll be alongside Ethan Stanley. They hit the restart zone now, and Corey leads him down a little bit slow, gets on the loud pedal. Brenton and Goody were a little slow to the jump there. Darren Staff was on it right behind Ethan Stanley. That outside line might have a little bit of a run.
Well, you say that, and immediately Ethan Stanley jumped to the bottom. That's going to allow him to hook up with Corey Abbott. They're going to try to get out of Dodge, which is a unique strategy at Daytona. Right now, that puts, I believe that's Michael Goodman leading the outside line. Boy, Carlos is out of shape there in front of, you mentioned Chris Stouffer.
Yeah, Stouffer got caught in the middle. Vandermarl very aggressive in the 80 car. We saw that from his teammate Trey Holmes. It kind of cost Gerald Campbell a spot in the Daytona 500. That aggression late in the going. Now Rucker is clear of the top. Fody clear of the top, and he jumps to the outside. He'll try to lead this thing from the top with Darren Staff and Carlos Acosta in tow.
And you know they'd love to see Tyler Fody lead them a little bit forward, try to get them some breathing room on that cutoff spot. Right now, Tyler Fody leading the outside lane, only 5th on the leaderboard right now, side by side with Brent Jones.
Vandermarl into the middle on Carlos. Carlos left the middle open a little bit too much. Now Vandermarl to the middle. He'll get caught with Clark, and Carlos down to the back. Now Darren into the Tate Lytle contact down the back. This thing's gotten wild.
The gloves are coming off now. We talked about how tame this duel had been. Playtime, it's over. It's time to find out who's going to get to the front, who's got to get those spots. And right now, it is 3 wide in this pack while the top 3 are trying to run and hide.
And Darren has now got help from Vandermarl, who was pressuring him earlier. Fody now in front of Tate Lytle. He and Brent Jones side by side, and that's allowed Corey Abbott, Ethan Stanley, and Michael Goodman to sturge away. And then 2 more Abbott Motorsports Toyotas have jumped up here to 4th and 5th with Brent Jones and a Leighton Norgard.
There you saw out of turn 2, Tate Lytle just a little bit of a wiggle. He is getting huge pushes from Jesse Racimus in that number 70 car in the middle lane. And it is everything he can do to keep that car pointed in the right direction. 3 wide still in this second group. They keep falling further and further back from that lead pack, but they are fighting for everything they've got, especially guys like Darren Staff and Carlos Acosta in this group.
I mean, this is wild. The front 6 have just driven off and left this 3 wide pack in the dust. Corey Abbott, Stanley, Goodman, Jones, Norgard, and
contact.
Oh, there's the contact between, and they're trying to eliminate this 3 wide battling, but it's still going on with Lytle, Vandermarl, Jesse Racimus, Kyle Hanshaw, and more.
Yeah, and I think I just heard in the driver's chat somebody was pleading, either one of the leaders was like, let's stay single file and get away, or somebody in the back was saying, we got to figure this out. Either way, you're starting to hear these guys talk to each other and say, we got to figure this out if we want a shot here.
Yeah, and that's tough for Carlos and Darren. Carlos now 13th, but he's got the lane on the outside. I mean, they're flirting with that cut line of 12th spot like we were talking about right now. Carlos running in 12th. So, you know, it's by no means safe for those RK Motorsports cars up front. The guys who've been playing it safe, who've been being very, very smart, Brent Jones, Michael Goodman, Leighton Norgard, they're up here driving away.
And you know that they would love to be able to keep that gap and discuss it amongst themselves for the end of this race. But right now, that second group starting to single out a little bit, and we'll see if they're able to chase down with Tate Lytle leading the train. If you had to draw from a hat, that's the guy you want leading the group, and he's eaten into the gap pretty quickly.
Yep. Then once they got single file, they caught right back up to this group of 6 up at the front. Tate's already there. Now the question is, does Tyler Fody make a move? And yes, he does. Tyler Fody to the top of the racetrack around to Leighton Norgard and Brent Jones. And this run is going to be huge. Does Stanley and Abbott try to block it? If they do, that's going to cause a big wreck.
Yeah, I think discretion, the better part of valor for Corey Abbott and Ethan Stanley. They saw that head of steam. Nothing good was going to come out walking in front of that train track. Tyler Fody to the lead, Tate Lytle second, Jesse Racimus third. Just like that, Darren Staff, 4th position.
Yep, Darren into 4th. Rucker, though, peaking to the bottom of the racetrack. And with that also, Carlos Acosta back up into the transfer spot, but he's got to gain a couple more positions in order to guarantee his slot in this Daytona 500. He just needs to finish above 12th right now, running 11th.
You saw Connor Thompson as well as Mitch Javier officially done for the night. More than 6 laps off the pace. So those two drivers for sure will not be with us next week as this racing continues on at the front of the field. 7 laps to go.
Jeff Green will not either. It is down to Staff and Acosta for our transfer drivers. Jeff just retired from the race.
Indeed, he has. He brought his car pit side. He wasn't 6 laps down yet, but I believe we had seen him go a lap down on the apron, and he decided enough was enough. So that takes care of Jeff Green. He will not be in the Daytona 500 next week.
At this point, Carlos sitting on the top of the racetrack behind Kyle Hanshaw. Nick
3
Massey,
wide.
the one making it 3 wide around Carlos's teammate Darren Staff and Corey Abbott. Massey trying to pull to the front, but now he is in the garbage chute. He'll head to the back, and he'll end up behind Carlos.
6 laps to go as these cars work their way into turn number 3. Tyler Fode still leading the way. Tate Lytle second. Jesse Racimas third. Darren Staff fourth. Andrew Rucker fifth. These 5 cars have played pretty nice for now on the high side, but you know as we get closer to the end of this race, the intensity going to ratchet up even more and more and more. Kyle Hanshaw, 6th place right now. Not a name we've talked about a lot this evening, but here it is. It's crunch time, and he's made his way into the picture.
Yeah, the guy who is starting to surge to the front and is leading the charge on the bottom of the racetrack is Ethan Stanley in the 91 car. Michael Goodman, Corey Abbott pushing him. And as cars stream by on the bottom, Carlos Acosta second to last on that outside lane. He continues to lose positions, and it's all down to whether or not Carlos can make the Daytona 500 on the results of this duel or not. Darren Staff currently looking good from 4th place, but there's still 4 laps to go.
Now you see that bottom lane stall out just a little bit. Definitely more cars on that outside line. Definitely more energy in that outside lane with 4 laps to go. Can they get hooked up though? You see a little bit of a gap there right now between the 64 and the 46 in that high side. If those cars on the bottom can get just a little bit more synced up, they can charge by, and you're starting to see them try out of turn 2.
Yep, that's the guy. Yeah, 3 Abbott Motorsports Toyotas down there, but up in that top lane, it's Tyler Fode, Tate Lytle, Jesse Racimas, the top 3. Racimas, new acquisition for Do Good Motorsports, replacing Ethan Burrell in that 70 car. That's the last race winner here at Daytona in the Elite, in the Belly Up Cup Sports Series. So can Jesse Racimas make a move from 3rd? He and Darren Staff bottle up a little bit. Here comes Andrew Rucker to the bottom of the racetrack.
Andrew Rucker making the move to the bottom. Ethan Stanley's got to give him a shot. It was a big shot. It almost got Andrew Rucker out of shape, but he hangs on to it. Can they take advantage of that? Can they work that bottom lane forward? That's one more chess piece on that bottom lane. See if they can build up a little more momentum.
It is worth noting there are 13 cars in this pack. Carlos Acosta and Darren Staff cannot finish 12th or 13th. They have to beat 2 cars in the pack in order to transfer to the Daytona 500. 3 laps to go. Race win between Fode, Lytle, Racimas, and Staff. But Andrew Rucker and Ethan Stanley charging on the bottom of the track. Here comes Nick Massey to the middle.
Nick Massey again trying to make that middle lane work. He's got to get really
almost cut him off.
And Massey almost cut down in front of Rucker. Rucker backs out of it.
Oh, Brent Jones checking up top. He and Norgard making contact. That checks the back of the field up with 2 laps to go, and that gives Carlos Acosta some breathing room.
That is some breathing room. You see those 2 cars settling in the back. They didn't lose the draft, but they need to get hooked up with Michael Goodman to try and catch back up. Meanwhile, up front, Tyler Fode still leading the way. You see Tate Lytle has worked his way into the 2nd position. Right now, can he decide whether he's going to make a move or not as they come to the white flag?
White flag is out. Final lap at Daytona. Nick Massey leading the bottom of the racetrack. Tyler Fode leading at the front, in front of Tate Lytle at the top of the track. Massey is alongside Tate Lytle, and Fode now blocks to the bottom of the track.
Fode throws it to the bottom in front of Nick Massey. Can Massey get back to the top, or has he got to try to push Vody out front and save it for the fight to the finish. Here they come down the backstretch. That bottom lane, 5 cars clear at the moment. It's gonna be, here comes Corey Abbott with Ethan Stanley.
Yep, Corey Abbott and Stanley have worked really well together all evening long. Here comes Tate Lytle to the top on Corey Abbott, but Nick Massey is the one charging to the front. Can Massey pass Fody here coming to the line? Can Acosta make it to the 500? Fody blocks Massey. Tyler Fody wins duel number 2. And at the line, they wreck. Carlos Acosta's gonna get in. He's 11th.
Carlos Acosta made it. He's bouncing off the wall right now, but he is in the show with an 11th place finish. Darren Staff, the highest finishing open car. Tyler Fody taking the win as the fireworks go off into distance. What a finish. What a night.
Yeah, this was a great night for racing, but Tyler Fody with a just incredible block of Nick Massey there coming down to the checker, just did everything in his power to prevent Massey from bypassing him and taking over that win. Fody and Burrell, the race winners, they are also going to lead us down to the green next week. They were our fastest qualifiers as well and started on pole in each of these races. And that does not happen often in these races at Daytona where the fastest qualifier comes out on top.
And no, it does not. Usually you're talking about the winners of these dual races starting 3rd and 4th in the Daytona 500. Nope. These guys will be the front row.
Yep, it's 3rd and 4th will be the runner-up finishers in these races. Nick Massey will get a runner-up finish in this one. Ethan Stanley finishes this race in 3rd. Tate Lytle finishes 4th. Jesse Racimus comes home 5th for Do Good Motorsports. And hey, Corey Abbott had a darn good race in that 21 car. He led a number of laps and was right in the thick of it until the end of this race. Darren Staff finishes in 7th. We talked about him a number of times tonight based on that he will be racing in the Daytona 500 next week after a very strong run and transferring in. Rucker and Hanshaw finish 8th and 9th, and Leighton Norgard rounds out the top 10, with Carlos Acosta coming home 11th. He beats Jake Scarborough by 1 position and should transfer into the Daytona 500.
Well, he's doing the donuts on the front stretch right now. I would say he's gotten some good words from race control on that, as now you see the results on the screen. Tyler Fody, Nick Massey, Ethan Stanley, Tate Lytle, Jesse Racimus, the top 5. Hopefully we'll see some names filter into the waiting room here momentarily.
I think we just need Tyler Fody, if I'm not mistaken. I would probably be willing to talk to Carlos after that as well. That's a pretty exciting little happenstance there that Carlos was able to get it in, and actually all 3 of the Arcane Motorsports cars are able to race in this Daytona 500 next week.
I mean, you mentioned, what were the odds of that with so many of those cars? I mean, the entire team being open cars, but Jess Story using quick time of the open cars to get in, and then the other 2 being able to race their way in. I don't know what the Vegas odds of that would have been, but I guarantee you it would have paid all right.
Let's talk to our one driver that we do have in the booth here, Nick Massey, runner up in this race, Nick, but definitely a strong finish in that race. And you waited till the end to make your move, but you were right there coming down to the line.
Yeah, I didn't intentionally wait. I was trying to get up there. It just seemed like whatever line I picked, we dropped anchor immediately when I hopped in it. But yeah, I mean, it took us until the last 5 miles of the race to get up there. But thought I had a shot. Tried to push Fody out there. To make sure nobody else could get past us, and kind of just gave him a big bump at the end and shot him out even farther when I tried to pull out to the right. But yeah, solid run. Hopefully we can carry it over to next week in the big race.
You talk about the big race next week. Obviously, some of the circumstances will be different. You'll go from the nighttime to the daytime. The field's got to be twice as large. But what are the biggest things you think you'll be able to take from tonight going into next Wednesday?
I felt like this year was a lot different than last year, or at least since the last time I ran these cars. It seemed like once you get somebody on your right side, it kind of pulls the car like left or right a little bit. It's kind of playing with the steering wheel instead of just kind of slowing you down like last year. So it's something a little new, because once we got 3 wide there for those handful of laps there, like 10 to go or whatever it was, it was a lot of banging doors, and I thought we were going to wreck a couple times, but it never happened. So hopefully we can. I got a good starting spot for next week. I think that's going to be kind of key because it was kind of hard to, work my way up there tonight. The other night in the clash, it was kind of a lot of going back and forth. I was able to go up to the front a couple times, and then made a bad move, fell back, and was able to get up there again pretty quick. But tonight I just couldn't. For whatever reason, I just wasn't able to do it. So hopefully it will be a little easier next week in the big race. A lot more cars out there. I think track position is kind of going to be a little bit going to be key.
Gotcha. Nick, any shout outs here before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, shout out to you guys. It's been a long night up here in the booth for you. Shout out to Carlos for making the big show. How about that? Then yeah, shout out to team owner Robert Hill and Jordan Owens and all the guys at Mountain Man.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Good luck next week, man. We'll see you up at the front for sure.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
Nick Massey, our second place finisher. We'll bring up race winner Tyler Fody. Then I want to do something special and bring up all three of those RK guys, and we'll talk to them all at once and close it out here. So let's start with Tyler Fody first, if I can get him in here. Tyler, it's David in the booth. You got me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. A really strong race from you tonight. Looked like you waited and bided your time until it was time to go, and once it was, you got up to the front and nobody could get around you. Is that the game plan for next week with starting from the pole once again?
Well, outside pole, but yeah, ideally I don't want to be trying to come from back there. I guess my connection or something with my stream was dragging my connection down, so I had to lose some spots under that yellow and get that all shut off, and I think it was a little better second half. So I wasn't trying to be back there in the pack, but it was some good learning to try and navigate through and then just time the run to get back up there.
Tyler, obviously hard to say this night could have gone better outside of the pole, right? Qualified up front, finished up front, starting on the front row next week. How much does that help the mindset going into 500 miles next Wednesday?
It's always nice, but it's a long race, and starting up front is nice, but you can very easily find yourself in the back. So I'm just going to try and manage it and lead the lines the best we can, and if not, just kind of hang around that front top 10 to top 5. I don't really like messing around anywhere else back there, but it is nice having the slight advantage starting in front of it all.
Well, Tyler, with that and with kind of having a good run with your teammate there, Ethan Stanley in third, any shout outs you want to give before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, I gotta shout out Burrell for getting the pole there, and just absolutely ripping my heart out. Really thought I had it, and then he got it there. So I think that's his first one too. So really cool for him to do that. I also think this is the first time that both of the front row guys ended up winning the duel. So that was something unique. So shout out to him. Shout out to all the Lake Norman guys. Everyone in the first duel there, Gavel. Getting my dad in, that was pretty cool to see. And then Wadsworth and Stanley for working tonight. I think we did pretty well. Our affiliate now, Nick Massey, was up there pushing. So, and shout out to Tate, who was a big part of me getting back up there. So all those guys, John Cutlip with JD Designs for painting all of our cars and painting up mine tonight too. And then shout out to you guys here for being in the booth.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Good luck next week, man. We've seen you win the Daytona 500 a couple of times before. We'll see if you can get number 3 next Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
All right, that's Tyler Fody, the duel number 2 winner and co-points leader with Ethan Burrell there. And I want to do something a little bit special that we wouldn't have otherwise done. We'll probably go through and we'll ask them all a little question here. But congrats to Carlos Acosta and all of RK Motorsports, because that was a pretty inspiring feat to take 3 of the 4 open spots for all of qualifying. I'll start with Carlos here. coming down to the wire, did you think you were gonna miss it there, or you guys knew you needed to finish at least 12th?
No, we needed to finish 11th because my qualifying was second worst, and I think Darren also got beat out by whoever finished 12th. Scarborough, excuse me. But wow, so we knew we had to get 11th. We were aiming for that. I was making whatever process I could to get to the front. Got there towards the middle, and mostly stayed there towards the end. And once we knew all the open cars were out of the race, I knew I just had to make sure we finished 11th at least.
That's awesome. And I want to ask Darren quick. You ran a pretty clean race there, Darren, and you were up front right until the end. Was there ever any worry, especially once all the kind of competition fell out and it was just you and Carlos able to kind of go for that 11th spot or better?
I mean, at first when we heard that every other car other than the one, because I'm pretty sure you wrecked out earlier, had a meatball flag, I was like, all right, that's great. So at least me and Carlos, one of us two was 100% in the event. And it just came down to if we could finish top 11 and both of us can make it in. And my plan worked out pretty much perfectly. I stood in the back for most of the race and then made it through that first big wreck. Got my way up to, I think the most I got was 4th, and it's just trying to pray for Carlos to make a top 11, which he did by, I think it was a 400ths, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I think it's around there.
0.036.
Woo.
Oh,
there was on the backstretch, there was a moment where both Goody and I were clear. Goody was behind me, and I started making my way down low, and I thought about going to the inside line and holding it there, but I decided to go up high, even though the momentum was still towards the inside. I just had a feeling. Goody stayed down low, and he got side by side. He even passed me for a bit, and then the momentum came, and exiting turn 3 and 4, I just was able to hold off just enough momentum to beat him by that much, and that was close. I really didn't know where I was. I tried counting in the corners. I tried counting the cars in front of me, but like it's like as if I was in a real car. My vision was shaking, and I couldn't actually count how many people were in front of me. I didn't know how to math. And I was just like, whatever I finish is whatever I get, and I just kept the pedal down.
That's awesome, and we have everybody in here. Jess, I know you didn't really have quite the result you were looking for in half one, but what does it mean to have all three, both your teammates in here and racing with you in this Daytona 500 next week?
Oh my! I am so proud of both of them. They drove a heck of a race in race 2, especially Darren. Being smart and like watching everything unfold. But yeah, like I said, very proud of both of them. I kind of wish I was there to help them out a little bit, but it doesn't look like it looks like they didn't need the help. So all three of us in the Daytona 500, is quite a feat. So I'm so, like I said, I'm so proud of them, and I can't wait to race next Wednesday night.
All right, well, I'll let Carlos give the thank yous and shout outs, and then we'll send you guys off and hop off for the night.
Well, I want to thank everybody out here watching tonight. Thanking the broadcast booth, the broadcast producer, and the commentators. You guys all do a fantastic job. Kept us entertained, especially during the down periods when there wasn't racing. I want to shout out to my drivers for getting all the cars in. I got to shout out to our sponsors, Mrs. Goody's Goodies, Through TV, and Just Story Gaming. Say your sponsor correctly, Jess?
JSTO Gaming, but that's close enough.
That's close enough. I'm like, there's too much for me to focus on. So it's just I still can't believe we got all three cars in there. This is I had a feeling we would get one car in, and immediately we got one car in with Jess putting in a monster of a qualifying lap, and then it's like, okay, well, if we don't get anybody else in, I'll be happy. We got one car, and then we knew next thing we know, another one of us is for sure locked in, and then we just had to earn that final spot, and That was it's a magical night.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, guys. We'll look forward to seeing all three of you drafting together next week at Daytona in the 500. And we'll send you off with that. So congratulations and have a good night, everybody.
Yep. Thank you for the
All right.
broadcast.
Thank you.
So with that, Zach, a wild night of racing comes to an end. Any final thoughts before we get ready to go for the Daytona 500 next week?
Man, I think the biggest one for me right now, David, is I'm a little jealous of you because obviously, uh, even though I'll be in the booth for most of the season, unfortunately, will not be. If things stay according to plan at the moment, I will not be in the booth next week for the biggest race of the season. Go figure. And if it's anything like tonight, I'm gonna miss out on a heck of a show.
Yeah, I think you will, and we'll definitely miss you. But I think it'll be Robert standing in, and that should be an exciting time. And we'll definitely, I'm sure, see you in the chat and whatnot. So a great start to the season, and I'm excited for what we have coming down the line. So for David Huckleberry, the producer, Zach Evans, and David Westergreen, the announcers, this has been the Belly Up Sports Series Duels at Daytona for the home place beer Daytona 500, which occurs next week at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. Tune in to Elite Racing Network then, and we will catch you, I believe, Sunday for the trucks. Good night, everybody.